what today has made you a victim, Mr. Bossetti?
Yeah, so today's episode, welcome back. This is sponsored by victimmentality.com. If you own that domain, pay me a royalty. Uh, you know how we were talking yesterday? You were having a couple alcoholic drinks for the
Yep.
first time, and
Yep.
you couldn't remember the last time you had one drink, let alone in multiple days. Yesterday, decided to let loose a little bit. I love sports, love football. We've talked
Mm-hmm.
about it 100 times. Bro, I had three Palomas because I have plenty of chest hair, so I don't have anything to prove as far as drinking beer and acting
Yeah.
like it tastes good. Because let's face it, uh, tastes like shit.
Yeah.
So I get the girly drinks. Dude, I had three drinks, and I woke up today. I couldn't tell you the last time. I think the last time I had a drink of alcohol was the Red Sox game in summer, and before then, I legitimately can't remember. Nothing against it, right? It's just I
Yeah.
don't know. I get nothing from it. Um, wow, it's impressive that people can drink one drink a night or a dozen and function the next day.
I think that people build up a tolerance, which
Yeah,
is the first thing, when I go for, I did, I don't know how many months. I think I did 9 months, no booze. And that was the longest recent one. I've gone 30 days or 45 days or whatever. But the 9 months was epic for me. When I had a drink after that point, and I just said I'm going to do it for 9 months. And honestly, after the 9 months, I really had no desire to have a drink because I just felt so good. I was sleeping so much better. I was waking up so much crisper. And I just kind of was like, yeah, I did the 9 months. I did it. I made it. I'm going to have a drink.
yeah,
And to your point, I didn't need to have some, I'm not a beer fan. I haven't drank beer probably in 20 plus years. So it always tasted like shit to me. The one thing I will say is I remember having an ice cold Corona one time after I'd been working outside with my friend's old man in the summer. And man, it was just, we were just working out outside all day. It was like hot as hell. And man,
that's how
that
you
ice
learned.
cold.
That's how you learned Spanish, right? You were doing some.
Yeah, I was doing manual labor. Yeah, of course, I had to. And oh man, it tasted so good, and that's why I
Oh,
had the Corona too, because it was fitting. And yeah, man, it tasted so good. But typically, I feel like beer tastes like shit. It always gives me like heartburn and stuff. So I never. Yeah, I'm a tequila guy, which you know.
yeah.
I like bourbon, but sometimes I kind of just go for. I've been known to like if I just want to be social and not want to like feel wrecked. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, pass me a White Claw. I don't care. Like
Ooh.
I'm like, I don't care. I just like want something light that tastes half decent and whatever. What I found though was at my height and my size, so I don't like one drink really doesn't do anything for me. And that was the whole reason why I stopped because I was never the guy to have multiple drinks by myself or like at home.
Yeah.
Even when I go out, I'm driving, so I don't want to have multiple drinks. I just would have one drink. But then I just got to the point where I realized, why am I having one drink? I don't
Yeah.
feel it. It does
Yep.
nothing for me. And most of the time, it's a drink, most of the time, that doesn't even taste good.
Dude, yeah.
So what am I doing here getting the one drink? So that's when I kind of went on to I'm just going to have water, right? I'm just going to have
Yeah.
water. And, sometimes I do club soda with lime. But I really just had no desire to even put that in my system. And man, like people don't know. You don't know until you cut off booze completely how good it feels to be off of it. And then you kind of, when you've been off of it for so long, the inverse happens. You forget how bad it feels to drink. And then you need to have that day where you're like, man, fuck it, I'm having a drink. And then the next day you wake up and you say, that was the stupidest shit ever. Totally not worth it. Why did I do that? I mean, let's face it. It's poison, right? Like we're putting poison in our bodies, right? So what? Like that's why we feel bad, right? Our body's like rejecting it, and our bodies are built for survival. Like, why are you putting this poison in? I'm going to try to like get it out. So, yeah, I've gotten to the point where I have no desire, man.
Do you think there's benefit though? I think that there's a weird, like, mental, psychological side though. The person that comes home, kicks their feet up, long day, kids, whatever, or whatever that person's circumstances are, rich, poor, black, white, doesn't matter, stressed, not stressed, that if they have a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, that scientifically there's a lot of studies and data that show that that is negative for somebody. But do you think that it could be almost that other perspective of like, yeah, you technically could sleep not as well by smoking weed, drinking alcohol, but you actually do drink, or you actually do sleep better by having that glass of wine, because it just calms down like your nervous system of like how that routine helps you like get grounded and center yourself from the day. I think that, I don't know. And anyway, I'm asking you that, but yet going to give you my opinion as well. Like, I think that could help. It doesn't do anything for me, right? But I totally see how, having my own issues with substance abuse, specifically Adderall, I'm more of like, fucking crack. Give me some pharmaceutical meth and let's get a bunch of things done and run 100 miles and build a business and help clients and do this, and this. That's not saying that to act cool. It's just how I'm wired. Whereas I totally get how someone's like, dude, I fucking need a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine. I think it could actually weirdly benefit some people.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. I think a lot of it is psychological. I think there is this sense of when I get home, I want to kick my shoes off. I want to pour myself a glass of wine and sit down and relax. I think the bigger benefit is the kicking your shoes off, putting your feet up, and relaxing.
Sure.
The glass of wine or the cocktail has been associated with that as helping with the whole thing. But I think it's just, I don't want to say it's like the oral fixation thing or it's just like the muscle memory thing. But I've had a long day, whether, long day of 221B tactical meetings, long day of, coaching calls, whatever it might be. And I kick my shoes off. Well, I don't come in my house with my shoes. That's another weird thing growing up in Asian household. So, put my
Asian, Indian, black, white.
I'm all the above, whatever.
Yeah,
I can identify as whatever I want. It's 2024. It's almost 2025.
I'm excited.
I could identify as Eskimo, I think, right? Actually, some politician did. Didn't some crazy person, some lady out there identify as like American Indian or something like that? Or one
might have been. I think that's how Biden's son just got pardoned. Actually, I think that's how he was an Eskimo.
Bro, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into the fact that he was like vehemently saying, I am not going to pardon my son. No one is above the law. Like, it's out there, right? Whoever's running his Twitter account that put those tweets out there right now is like, oh, man. This
definitely
is
Hunter. It's definitely Hunter. He's
yeah.
Speaking of meth and Adderall, he's like, don't knock it till you try it. Let's go to Vegas. It's not so bad. And that's how Joe's coming back for fucking Joe 2.0. He's like, I'm ripping meth, fucking whores. Let's get after it.
Right.
I'm going
like
to be
just sniffing it.
Yeah,
just sniffing it, right? Just break it open, just sniff it. And I'm like, wow, that's a ballsy move. He just was like, yeah, forget about all that other shit I said. I'm pardoning my son. Now, listen. Let's take it to the level of being a dad, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to pardon your son. You're not going to allow your son to be prosecuted and sent to jail. That's just the fatherly thing that I think any dad would do. My issue is you clearly said you were not going to pardon your son, and nobody is above the law for optics. So if you know you're going to pardon your son on your way out the door, Don't say that. Because now he just looks worse. Because if it was in the back of his mind to do that all along, and he just simply kept quiet about it, and never just didn't address it with the media, didn't do anything, just kept quiet about it, and then he did what he did now, which is pardoning his son. Everyone would be like, oh, okay, we get it. He's pardoning his kid.
Everyone would say, obviously,
right. The backlash he's getting is not for the pardon. The backlash he's getting is for going against his word and going against what he said. And this is something with Biden we've seen time and time again. And I'm not pointing fingers because it happens with politicians on both sides of the aisle, right? That this is something that they say one thing and they hold that line, and they say it for a soundbite, and they say it for political points, and they say it for clout with their constituents, and then they go and do something completely opposite, and they're like, well, whatever, I'm in. I already got into office. I voted. It's done. It's over. And that's when
politicians lie, is what you're saying?
I think, what do they call it? They call it a version of the truth. They told a version of the truth, or it's funny. A buddy of mine made a post on Facebook. A guy I went to high school with, and he's really a super, super dude. Nice guy. In my turmoil of growing up and dealing with racism and going to an all-white school, this guy always treated me with such respect and kindness, and as did his family. And he went on to Naval Academy, and he went on to become a Navy SEAL. Great dude. And I'll never forget his kindness to me as a child because it meant a lot. He put up a post that was, he's like an anti-Trump guy, which is very shocking for, servicemen, right? But he put up a post speaking to, Kamala Harris after her debate with Trump. And he said, these are all the lies that Trump told during the debate last night. Boom, 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 boom. And he said, and these are the things that Kamala Harris misspoke on. And he listed like 2 things. And they were outright lies that she told, right? And so I said to him, I reached out to him, and I said, how is it that when Trump lies, it's a lie, allegedly, right? But when Harris clearly lies, you call it she misspoke. She misspoke and misstated facts. Isn't that too? And I said, so do you see how biased you are in how you're writing your Facebook post, or like are you like cognitively blind to it? And I know some people are I know people call it Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, and whatever. But I've heard people make mention of things about Trump, and when someone responds like, well, what about when Biden said this or Harris said this? They're like, oh, well, that wasn't a lie. He just got his facts wrong.
Yep.
And I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, this is like kindergarten stuff. Like, what are we talking about? Like, right? Oh, Johnny lied. Oh, this one. Oh, he just made a mistake. What? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and I think that goes with what you and I both know is the illusions of just how humans are, right? When it comes to, especially you being former, I cannot even imagine the amount of illusion or lies that were told to you as a former police officer.
Oh, man. Endless lies. Endless people guiding us based on their own goals, their own aspirations, and wanting to position themselves to get to the top. If you talk to most police officers, they would tell you that the biggest threat against their position and in their career almost always comes from within the police department. Within the walls of their own agency, are the biggest threats against them that could potentially end their career. And I'm living proof of that. It happened to me. And I always thought, as a officer of color working at an all-white department in a predominantly all-white town, I always thought that the threat would come from the public. Something would happen outside, on the road, on patrol, on a call. And there were things that happened, but they didn't have anything to do with my race, or this color of my skin. People said weird stuff. Like I stopped an old couple one time, and I was letting the guy who was driving off with a warning, and the wife, before I walked away, and said, "Excuse me, are you new here?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am new." And she said, "Well, we've lived in the town for whatever, I don't know how, a few decades, whatever."
87 years.
Yeah, right. It was literally one of those. And I said, "Oh, very nice." And she said, "Might I say, you're very well spoken for a Negro," right? And this was like early 2000s. She said this, right, on the side of the highway. And I was like, man, did she really just say it? Now, in my mind, right, I'm like, that is like the most screwed up thing I think anyone has ever said to me. But I also realized in that moment, she was not trying to be mean or rude or racist. Like, in her mind, she was genuinely giving me a compliment, but the way it came out, now people who have heard that story, I've shared that story with, I've told it on other podcasts, they're like, what? That's fucked up, man. That's like some racist shit. But you have to kind of take a step back and say, this lady was like 80-something years old. She was on her way to church or something like that. Like, I don't think there was a mean bone in her body. I think she was literally trying to give me a compliment. But obviously, it was weird in how it was presented.
It also, not to interrupt you for like the 87th time, one comment that you made about the police officer's biggest threat is within. It's like almost any organization. Like my limited time in corporate or even building a business, like it almost felt at times that, won't go too far down that, but like your business partner or affiliates or people that you would do business with or employees that were maybe trying to exploit you to another partner, et cetera. But definitely within an organization of a company, it's almost the person that doesn't want to train or give the right resources to the person, quote unquote, below them in the org chart because they might take their job, right? It's that kind of mentality. But also the veil that's being lifted, I think is safe to say right now, at least I hope it is that lady's experience, that limited experience that she had of communicating with a black person, right? That's what she saw on the news or in a town of all white people. It's like she might have had 3 interactions. And so she's like, oh, wow. So, and I think that's kind of shown, especially in this last presidential election, is like, oh, wow, Trump seemed to dominate the elections. Maybe the right and the conservatives all the way over here are not so crazy. And maybe the lefts all the way here are not so crazy. It's just the micro. It's like zoomed in, right, to like just that one tiny experience or person sharing their beliefs. That's so intense. It's not really how most people are,
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, I interrupted you. My apologies.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, one of the things that to your point, that I think a lot of people woke up to this election was the inability for Democrats to substantiate some of their claims. You can't continue to... Donald Trump ran on policies, and he talked about what he was going to do, right? And for me, looking at this as not only an American and a citizen, and I believe to be a patriot, but someone who has served our country as a law enforcement, serving our community, for 13 years, a huge portion of my life. They tried to, and he ran on policy. They ran on "we're not him" and against him. So I don't know if you remember and this was incredible because I was at the Democratic National Convention, by the way, and it was in Chicago. And at the Republican National Convention, when Trump spoke, he only said the name Biden once. And they said that during that entire week, he only said the name Biden was only spoken by all the speakers in total, something like 5 times, right? Mm-hmm. On the flip side, at the Democratic National Convention, every speaker said the word Trump an average of like 7 times. And Harris said it, I don't know how many times. Like, so to me, it's very clear. Their campaign was anti-Trump. Mm-hmm. And Trump's campaign was, we got a lot of problems. Yeah. And we're going to fix the problems. And the problems are bad. And we're going to fix them and make things right again. And I think that's what resonated. And so when the other side was like, he's a racist, the people on this side were like, okay, but these are the problems. Like black people, Hispanic people. That's how he got such high amounts of black and Hispanic vote. They were kind of like, okay, first of all, we know racism. And racist people don't appoint black people and Hispanic people to their cabinet and, appoint them as leaders in their billion-dollar company. Like, racist people don't do that, right? It's just not what they do. You would see all white people running all of his companies, all of his golf courses, all of his hotels. His entire staff would be white, and his entire cabinet would be white. And what he just appointed a black, Hispanic, a gay, or a gay guy, or a homosexual guy. Like all kinds of people across the spectrum are on his cabinet.
Yeah, the director of the FBI, he's Indian, right? Like
he's Indian. Yeah, Kash Patel. So my brethren, my cousin, and like you say to yourself, how are you still saying this? How are you on what grounds are you calling this man a racist? So what happened was they said it to a point where it diluted the word racist, and the people who they were speaking to saying, hey, he's racist, he's racist. They started seeing all the things. They're like, actually, no, he's not. So what else are you lying about? Yeah. And they so pretty much everything else you're lying about. So that's where I think the shift occurred.
What problems do you think society in America is facing right now that Trump, his administration, are likely going to solve that should give anybody peace of mind? Whether you're on the left, the right, the middle, here's the problems, the top 3 problems, and I truly believe that Trump and his administration, because I think that's what people need, and that's reassuring, is more of like a logical sense of like peace of mind, some hope. Whether you want to vote for her because you hate him so much, or you wanted to vote for her, or you wanted to vote for him because you think he's going to solve XYZ problems. I'm curious to get your take on the next 4 years, these problems will be solved by XYZ, and here's some peace of mind whether you love or hate the guy.
So that's a great question. Here's the I love how you're asking me questions on my podcast, which is awesome. I absolutely love it. So here's the problem. You have a guy who's coming in who already did the job, right? So there's no question about what he is going to do and how he is going to do it. He might do some things differently, but he's already had the job once. And based on not opinion, but based on the numbers and based on the statistics that, for whatever it's worth, the government put out, right? The country was in a great spot, right? So whether you like him, hate him, whatever, the country was in a good spot.
And you would say that from, how do you measure in a good spot, like
So
financial?
I measure by the importance of things to our country, right? So the ultimate human concern is survival, right? That's our number one concern. When we wake up in the morning, you could take a look at everything we do, and everything that the average human being is doing every day is about survival. So we're going to work to make money, to pay our bills, so we can ultimately buy food and have a shelter. That's it. If you don't go to work and you don't earn income, you won't be able to buy food. You'll starve and you'll die. You don't go to work, you won't be able to have shelter. You need at least a minimum like a tent, right? Or you'll be exposed to the elements and you'll die. So it's all about survival. That's our number one concern as human beings. We're biological beings, right? So the thing that was weird was I saw people on the left, and I have some close friends who are definitely on the left, that those basic tenets of survival, although they knew those concerns would be taken care of better under Donald Trump, they still were voting for Harris. And that, to me, is a level of, I don't want to call it insanity, because insanity seems like a harsh term. But when you, as a human being, are, and I think it's because people saw it as a short-term thing. I think people saw, like, if I vote for Trump, if I vote for Harris, it might be just for 4 years, and maybe things will change or whatever. But I just hate Donald Trump so much, I'm not going to vote, even though I know that he's going to come in, probably do the same thing he did last time, and the economy will be strong. I'll be able to afford to buy a house. I'll be able to afford groceries. I'll be able to afford gas. Probably less criminals coming, and gang members like coming into the country and bringing in less drugs. So ultimately, my chances of getting killed or, a family member being exposed to dangerous, lethal drugs are going to be lower. Like, all these things that they knew, and I talked to some of them, they knew would be better if Trump got elected. And they still said, I'm voting for Harris. And I was like, what? Like, that now, like, we talk about drinking, like alcohol. Like, alcohol is poison, right? Essentially, it's poison. So when people drink alcohol, it's like most people know, it's not good for me. It's not good for my health and my biology, right? And my physiology. But I'm still going to drink it. Okay, why? Because it feels good. It makes me just feel better. So you'd rather feel better short term and kill yourself long term. Ultimately, cumulative over time. I kind of feel like it was one of those things where, like, yeah, I know things are going to continue to be bad with Harris, and it's going to be more poison, but I hate the other guy so much that I'm willing to sacrifice part of my survival, which is just insane, because biologically we're animals, right? We are wired for survival. So to intentionally make a move that goes against your physiology and your biology as a human being, that was wild. That was wild. And some people said it outright. So that was the first thing that was scary. But now, to your question, what are the three things he's going to change? I think, well, the biggest thing that is getting the most attention right now, which I think is important, is the border. The southern border is a bigger issue than most people think, only because of the sheer number of people that have come into this country over the last 4 years. The numbers they are giving us, we all know, when the government gives us a number, just triple it, right? Just triple. They finally admitted that they don't know where 300,000 children are. They admitted that, right? Like, they don't know where 300,000 children are. We all know where these children are, right? They're in the sex child trafficking underground, right?
A couple islands.
Yeah. Yeah, some islands with some people on some lists that I hope we'll see. I don't know. Once cash gets in there, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that to me is huge. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. Now, mass deportations based on what is being reported. I don't know how viable that is. I don't even know how possible. I mean, you talk about like, some of these politicians want to do massive gun seizures. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to go on every house and knock on every door and be like, give me all your guns? Like, that would not end well.
Good luck.
Yeah, that would not end well in this country, right? So I don't know how, like, what are you going to do? Just go door to door and like, let me see your papers, right? And if you don't, like, going, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm not buying the mass deportation thing. I'm just saying I don't know how you would pull it off. It's a good talking point and a soundbite for the evening news. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the liberal media is like homing in on that and like, man, it's going to be mass deportation. It's going to be mass deportation. Like, it's like a bad thing that people who came into this country illegally, and those especially that are dangerous, violent criminals, them getting deported. How is that a bad thing? Like, yeah. I don't think that's a bad thing, right? So there's that. But I think that's going to be the first thing. I think the second thing is going to be how these government agencies are run. I want to say that faith and belief and trust in the FBI and other agencies is probably at an all-time low. When FBI agents were pulled off of child sexual assault cases to go after Trump, like, what?
And from my understanding, to use deadly force.
Yeah. Like, wait, what? Like, what, like, what is, like, going on? So you saw resources being pulled from situations that involve violence and criminals, and they were being redirected to, I don't know if you saw the story of the pastor who was like just praying in front of an abortion clinic with his kid, and they went to his house and the FBI SWAT team kicked in his door and locked him up. Did you see that story?
No.
It was absolutely insane. I was like, what in the world? He was praying in front of this clinic, right? Or whatever. He's a pastor. He was like this meek guy, right? And he was there with his kid. And, long and short of it, they found him. And they went in with a SWAT team, rifles out, kicked in the door, and locked him up. And I was like, are these the same people who were starting GoFundMes and bailing people out during the riots when they were burning cities down? Like, yeah. Oh, this guy was caught on camera. He burned a store to the ground, owned by a black person, by the way, and guilty. He did it. Let's start a GoFundMe and bail him out. And you're like, wait, this guy got arrested, kicked in the door, SWAT team, and this guy is getting bailed out. What? He just burned someone's business to the ground, and it's on video. How is this possible? Like, what is happening? How are you not investigating crimes against people and children and serious crimes, arson, like large amounts of money missing, and which we can get into that. That's like a crazy. And rather, you're redirecting efforts to say, we got to watch parents at PTA meetings who are upset that there's books in their child's elementary school library about little boys giving each other oral sex. Yeah, you got to go after them.
Yeah, I agree. I think the approach that you're saying as far as like human basic concern, right? Safety, security, right? Like if you want more safety, security, you're likely going to have less freedom, You want more freedom, you have less support from the government for safety, security. I think the conversation around immigration, how to do, I'm not qualified for that. I think that there's a unique conversation with population decline and how that can negatively or positively impact a country's economy, hence Italy, hence Japan. Clearly, people are having less kids. And if they are having kids, much older. So, what does that do to the workforce? But then we have the conversation of technology and how that can be replacing irrelevant jobs. So, what is that perfect harmony balance between population and GDP and all this fancy economic stuff, right? But I think that pretty much everyone can agree, immigrant or citizen, there should probably be some consequences for your actions, right? Especially based on the actions being the difference of somebody that crossed the border for a better life and they are actually paying taxes and they are actually providing versus somebody that is coming here with maybe some ill intent, right? For violence or whatever that may be. But I agree with you. Dude, I think you nailed it with the second piece that's going to be interesting is the 3-letter entities. It's the conversation of Trump as Hitler because he's coming in here and saying, "Oh, I'm cleaning house and I can do it." So there is like a weird sense of like, holy cow, the president has a lot of power. They can just pardon people from not having to face the law. So actually, you are potentially above the law, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
But then secondly, it's like understanding how democracy works and these agencies and blah, 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 blah. But I think that's what is really going to be interesting that I want to hear you unpack a little bit more as far as the, like the IRS, right? The tax code is one of the most complex things ever essentially invented or created by humans. 80,000 pages, and there's what, tens of thousands of IRS agents. I mean, the mafia was oftentimes taken down from not paying taxes, not murdering people, right? So that's going to be the interesting conversation, is bringing in these people and resources and whatnot to do the checks and balances. Like, how in the hell does the Pentagon fail another audit for trillions of dollars? But if you and I do something to that extent, or not even remotely close to that extent, the probability of actually facing criminal crime and going to prison is higher than not. So that is what's interesting. But then it's also Trump's intention, which is a fair argument all the way over here on the left of like power and control. So if he puts the right pieces in play, right, then he has. So yeah, man, it's a spiral conversation that can make you stay up at night and take some Adderall and drink too much whiskey, and then you start clicking down rabbit holes, and next thing you know, you're on TikTok and Twitter, and holy shit, the veil's being lifted, and I'm a QAnon member, and I got a tinfoil hat on, and then you go, oh, I still have to pay for groceries. That sucks.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's a dark road you can go down. And from time to time I've gone down it only from I want to say a knowledge procurement standpoint. I don't necessarily believe everything I'm reading, but I like to read. I always consider the source, and I like to know what's happening. I tell people this all the time. Acquiring knowledge is not just acquiring what you want to believe. It's acquiring everything. It's acquiring both sides. And it's about reading things that maybe you're not sure about or you're maybe biased against. A lot of my friends always, let me not say a lot of my friends. Some of my friends oftentimes ask, why do you read certain newspapers? Why do you watch certain news channels? And I always tell them, because it's good to hear the other side. One, it's good to know both sides of an argument. Mm-hmm. Because I truly don't think you can be I don't want to say an independent, which I kind of see myself as, I vote for people and the policies, not just a party. So I've voted on both sides of the aisle multiple times in my lifetime. But I don't want to, I don't want to know just one side. I think it's important. So I even had to do this as a police officer. You go to a house for a domestic violence call. And although one person called the police, you can't automatically assume that that person is the victim and the other party is the aggressor, because I can't tell you how many times I went to a house and the wife called the police. And you go in and you investigate and you talk to witnesses, and then you find out that the wife was the aggressor, and the wife was the one who initiated, and the wife was the one who actually first assaulted the husband. And in defending himself, putting his hands up or pushing her away, she falls down. He's trying to defend himself. Right? This is actually a real call I went on, and there were witnesses to it. You're like, oh, okay. So although you called 911, and you're saying you're the victim here, you're getting locked up. You're getting locked up. And of course, people are like, what? When you tell them that, they're like, what? But, you just thought because you called 911, we were just going to automatically show up and lock him up? Right? A lot of the times that was the case, and a lot of the times that's what happened. Don't get me wrong. Sure. But there were those instances where you needed to get both sides of the story.
Sure.
And you acquire more knowledge when you have both sides of the story, right? But the other thing is, you also gain knowledge on the game plan. So I would watch CNN and MSNBC, and I would look at it, and I'd hear what they were saying, and some of the things were complete BS, complete garbage, complete fabrications.
No way.
Or they were saying things that paled in comparison to what the other side was doing. But I was watching, I was learning. What were they putting out there? What was their angle? How were they doing? It's almost like war games, right? Mm-hmm. You have to see what their playbook is. Mm-hmm. If NFL teams could do one thing, it would be to watch the other teams practice.
That's why the Patriots and Tom Brady is overrated, because they were watching practices and cheating.
They were cheating, right? That's the word. So what people are like, oh, what's the big deal? What? You're talking about $1 billion industry. It's a very big deal, right? Mm-hmm. So I always watch, I always listen, I always read to both sides. And I see how I saw the shift occurring this last election. I saw what was happening. And what I noticed was the stories on the left were getting more and more outrageous and appearing more and more desperate. And that's when that was the difference that made the difference. That's when I knew they were in some serious trouble. That's when I knew, when they were lying about basic little things that they had no reason to lie about. But then they were lying about those things, and then they got caught. And of course, nothing ever happens when anyone gets caught. No one gets in trouble, right? You got people lying in front of Senate Judiciary Committees, and nothing happens. Outright lie, right? Dude. And it's disgusting. I don't even know why they have those committees. They're all a show, by the way. They're on both sides. They're all a show. Nothing ever happens as a result of them. Whether it's Dems going after some liberal or liberals going after some conservative, it's all a show. All of those things you see on C-SPAN with, Senate Judiciary Committee, and they're questioning this person today. Okay, how many times have we seen someone who was questioned one of those committees by one of those panels that they found out dead to rights had lied and nothing happened? Zero. So anyway,
It's like a
going back to what
pharmaceutical company agreeing to pay a $8 billion lawsuit, but they made 20 billion, so they're still net positive, and everyone just moves on with their life because they don't care because they have rent to pay, they have groceries to pay.
yeah, they're just moving on. It doesn't matter, or reasonings behind why test data it has to be sealed for 75 years on certain, like, what, 75 years, like who, like, listen, man, I'm going to go back to the watching both sides of the news for a second, but let me just hit this point. This goes back to human biology and survival once again. And this is something that once again didn't make sense. We are wired for survival. We are biological human beings. So when someone comes up to me, I don't care if I am pro-Trump, pro-Harris, pro-alien, pro-freaking whatever. If someone comes up to me and says, listen, you got to take this drug. And I say, okay. But here's the thing.
Hell
we can't
yeah.
show you what the drug did in trials or the results of what happened to people who took it in trials.
Double dose it. Come on, give me double dose.
We can't show you that for 75 years. I don't know who. Like I said, I don't care who you support, what side of the aisle you're on. Doesn't matter. Now, this now comes down to survival and biology, right? So the people who said, what? You can't share the results of all that data for 75 years? Okay, sure. And they put their arm out and said, yeah, I'll take it. To me, something is off with that person because you have to know something is up there that, if you had to bet, does not benefit you. Right? Like, imagine, forget your body. Forget your body for a second. Imagine you go to buy something very expensive, right? Very expensive. I don't know what's something like. Okay, you go buy a flat screen TV. Okay, buy a flat screen TV, and you want a new 8K Hubba Bubba Sony, and they're like, yeah, it's gonna be $6,000. And you say, okay, $6,000, 100-inch, all the bells and whistles. All right, I'll take it. A TV. This is not your survival. This is a TV. And if you went to the checkout and they said, hey, listen, $6,000, swipe your credit card. Here's the thing. You can't open the box for 75 days. However, the return period is 30 days. Would you buy that TV?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No one I know would buy that TV. And you were talking about a fucking piece of electronics, right? You would go to that register and say, yeah, I'd like to, and they always ask you if you want that extended warranty and all that bullshit, right? So imagine you went up to the checkout and they said, just so you know, there's a 30-day return policy. After 30 days, you cannot return this product. You are out $6,000. But you can't open the box for 75 days. Not one person would buy that TV. But when it came to your own body and your own health, they said, listen, we want you to take this shot, but we can't tell you about what might happen with the results during our testing and development of this for 75 years. You'll be dead.
It's like the JFK situation, right? The rumor is he's going to finally declassify the last X amount of documents that supposedly come to a conclusion, and the previous FBI director, as Trump was going to declassify the remaining documents, came to him and said, don't do that. It may not be a good result.
You can't do
that. My concern, and I'm curious on your feedback on this as well, it's similar to what you're saying. It's just a different topic, such as there's a COVID outbreak, everyone's going to die, go inside, to where everyone's a little confused as far as, is this real or not, whatever. Then you get COVID and you're like, okay, they're saying is real. Okay, some people are dying. Are the numbers true or not? But it really comes down to what you're saying, which is like get this shot or get these 2 shots and you're fine. You can take the mask off. To, oh, no, you got to put the mask back on because then you have to take this booster. Okay, I hear you. And I can see where at first, tinfoil hat on, I'm like, oh, nope, I knew from day one, red flag from day one. But then I go, no, I'm self-employed. I don't have a job, so I don't have to go check the box to my employer. So I understand. Some people are like, the fight or flight, the survival, like I literally need the paycheck. I'm going to go get the shot. Like, it's crazy, of course. You're putting your health of potentially dying versus the job. But to an extent, the other option of not doing it is almost choosing death as well for you to feed your family. So I get that. But then it's you can take the mask off when you get the booster. Okay, you get the booster. No, you actually got to get the second booster and keep the mask on. I think that's the problem that you and I are saying. Whether you're on the left, the right, believe in COVID shot, whatever, that's the problem. In my opinion, to bring this full circle with the JFK situation, it's what do we do if he releases the JFK, he declassifies the documents and it says a 3-letter entity was involved or influenced this? What does Suresh do? What does Tyler do? What does anyone do? I think that's the interesting conversation. It's what do we do if the Epstein list is released? What do we do? Because we already have factual evidence of Hunter Biden doing XYZ and he gets pardoned. That's, I think, the interesting conversation. What do we do? Oh yeah, I knew those people were on the list. That's what TikTok said. I know. Rent still do. Mm-hmm. I think that's, I don't want to say, because I want the conversation to be more on like hope, right? Like, I think whatever side you're on, it's like a moral responsibility that I'm trying to do better and better at each and every day is give myself hope and other people hope of going through that whole experience and looking back and going, okay, hold on. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? And how can I bring some hope to people, right? Like, how can I bring some, oh, okay, I get you got the shot, this and that, like, operate a little bit more graceful. But I think that is what, I want to say nervous or fear, any of those like low frequency energies, but it's like, oh man, that's almost scarier. That's almost terrifying if he releases the list and everyone just goes, well, lunch break is over. Got to go back. The fuck? Huh? Mm-hmm. What are we doing here? What's going on? But the world's a stage. They go audit the Pentagon, trillions of dollars. Fucking whatever. Well, Hunter Biden's pardoned. That. And so that's what I think is going to be interesting. Like, how is, not to like completely shift to the right field, but like, we've been in a very, very good economy since the financial collapse. There's 30 days from COVID that was a V-shaped recovery. We've been on the up and up. Now you could argue to say because technology, because advancements with AI and XYZ, but based on how economics work, it's a ticking time bomb that one of the biggest indicators is when interest rates go up and they start to come down, there's a like 99% probability, or at least in the last recent recessions, you're going to be in a recession and or in one already. So they've dropped rates a little bit. I think they're kind of cooling them down right now. Jerome Powell made that announcement from my understanding. And he's already made comments that Trump can't fire me because they're technically a part. That's the whole mess here with agencies, right? And 3-letter this and 3-letter that. But I think that digital assets, crypto, those things can solve a lot of problems with Social Security, a lot of problems with real estate, a lot of problems that financially is the foundation, the root cause of these policies, of these problems that people are encountering. But the other side of me goes, okay, what and who is going to do XYZ when to potentially collapse the economy? Whether Trump's president or not. Like every indicator I'm looking at, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Every indicator I'm looking at is like, yep, crypto's going to explode more. More traditional assets are going to likely correct, and interest rates are going to come down, and that is recession 101. So how is Trump going to make real estate more affordable? It would be more affordable when we're in a full-blown recession.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, we
Which
saw that last time.
they try to kill him. I'm curious. Do you think he'll get assassinated? Do you think that they'll enter World War III and send some missiles here? There, are we in World War III already? Like,
Someone declared last week that we are, right?
yeah, it was like Russia's former blah blah blah, from my understanding.
Yeah.
What I'm saying though is like what doesn't concern me is like a lot of people believe Trump's a businessman, finances, money, blah blah. Everything was better in that category. That's why people can overlook the more social issues, let's say.
Yeah.
But the actual data and indicators, in my opinion, are not in anyone's favor as far as inflated asset. Like, what do you do? I mean, in my personal opinion, it's incorporating digital assets like Bitcoin and those things, like for sure. And what does that mean? That means insurance company, institutionals, they start holding that in their portfolio, of which will be part of people's retirement plan, part of their Social Security. So then they actually have something that's outperforming inflation when we print off trillions of fucking dollars that are over time worthless, right? So I think that is a logical approach, or taking on those more quote unquote riskier assets, pulling from those assets, those profits, to then be able to afford a house. But outside of that, I don't know how we're not going to be based on those indicators, where interest rates are coming down, based on how much assets have grown. I don't know how we're not in a recession now and are going to be in one any day now.
Oh, I think that anyone who knows anything about economies and how everything goes in a cycle, we are on track for a major recession. So the question is, with digital assets, will the government ever allow citizens to hold digital assets that they can't track?
Crypto, Bitcoin, digital assets, that whole industry, I think, Suresh, there's two sides. There's the side of, why can I not send money to you on a Saturday as quickly and as cost effective as possible? Why do I have to wait till Monday at 9 a.m. for the bank to open to send this wire and to pay a $25 wire fee, and I type something in wrong and now we have a whole issue, right? So like from a technology and just overall better, more cost effective, efficient system, blockchain technology where it's tracking those transactions and digital assets, by far a better option. The other side of my conspiracy brain here, Suresh, is, are we pigs walking into a slaughterhouse? It's the idea of, it's decentralized. You own your keys, you own your coin, to, no, you're actually all paying more taxes because we can see every single transaction. So the $150 fee for your house to get cleaned, the $15 bag of weed that I know you're buying, Suresh. I know that you're
One of these days I gotta try. It feels like everyone on earth has done it now at this point, except me.
But you hear what I'm saying, right? Now, again, could you, which is, in my research, and definitely not gone down every single thing out there to speak 100% confidently on this, but if digital assets are implemented, it can be where pigs are not walking into a slaughterhouse, hence American citizens are not walking into where it's a trap almost, right? Where it's like, oh, got you now. Now we're a cashless society and this is like some biblical shit, end times, one world currency, and now we're all living in hell. It's, now there's actual tax strategy and incentives in place to utilize digital assets, similar to real estate. You buy real estate property, you can write off depreciation, the wear and tear of a property. If you're a real estate professional, based on at least current tax law, and this is not financial tax or legal advice, consult with your own counsel. There's different incentives if you're a real estate professional or not. So I think that's where it can actually be super useful is, Trump says he doesn't want to tax capital gains for digital assets. That's crazy. What does that mean? That means that you could be saving 30 to 50% of your money that you're maybe trading with Bitcoin, right? So if you make 100 grand, you might be, depending on where you live and tax liability, all the above. But in the simple example, like that could be saving somebody $30,000 to $50,000 that year. A dollar saves, a dollar earned. So that's where I think the conversation could be very positive, whether you like this guy or not. If they come in here and actually get some compliance and regulation in place, and we use social media and platforms like this to educate people to say, one, put in the time, put in the investment, the time, and, you might need to lose a little bit of money here and there. But at the end of the day, I think that a portfolio, an investment for human beings moving forward absolutely looks way different. Whereas we used to have a 40% portfolio with stocks and bonds, a perfect little balance. It's very obvious now that you need to have at least, depending on goals, risk tolerance, etc. And again, not financial advice, probably at least 5 to 15% of exposure to digital assets like Bitcoin. If not, you will absolutely be left behind, meaning your dollar is going to become worthless every single day that goes by. So I don't know if that answers your question, but between the border, the government agencies, and then digital assets, I think digital assets, which in reality, money is the root cause of all the shit that we're talking about. It's like the two most controversial topics, in my opinion, is what to tell a woman to do for their body, so abortion, and then gun laws, how someone can protect themselves, right? I don't think that those conversations go anywhere. Both sides are right, both sides are wrong. But I believe that what heavily influences that is emotions, and specifically what influences emotions for a lot of humans is money. It's the person feeling safe that they have the money to be able to protect themselves with a gun, or the person that is maybe using a firearm because they're stressed and they have a mental health issue, or they're trying to rob somebody. And then the flip side of that is a woman not feeling confident to have a kid, whether they stay with that man or not, because of the financial burden.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. I think that not every circumstance of they got raped or this or that, or even with gun laws, right? Like, do people need 187 guns? Probably not. But you get the point. I think a lot of it, unfortunately, comes down to money, to survive, like you said.
Yeah, survival. Yeah.
So
yeah,
we
it's
can,
the ultimate. It's
so
ultimate
we can,
concern.
if we can put people in a position to where they can get up, produce something for the day, and survive, and or ideally thrive, then that's a pretty awesome world that we live in. But let's face it, with society, it's the best of times and worst of times, right? Like, you made a comment about kids learning about blowjobs and being gay and chopping off their penis or changing genders. I just think that, the human brain loves to create problems if they're not there and to solve them, right? But I think it's almost a weird lesson that like we're just focusing on shit that doesn't matter. Like, like that's the social study teacher. Teach the fucking kid about history or teach them about math. But then you put yourself in that teacher's situation and meeting. You're like, well, yeah, of course kids can be whatever they want to be. So then you got like this weird made up pressure maybe in your head where you're like, again, like the police officer coming after your job or going to frame you or whatever. You're sitting there in the lunchroom, and because you don't agree or disagree, people might be coming out for you. Might slip something to the principal or the board of directors to get you fired. So then you have to kind of buy into the narrative so you can keep your job. And so, yeah, man, I think it just comes down to just hope. You know what I mean? Just trying to do our best to give people hope. And even those people all the way on the left that are chopping off their genitals or this or that, if anything, if there's one perspective that I try to take on in recent times is like, well, if we're so good over here and think they're wrong, they're crying for help. So try to like give them some hope of helping, like, oh, it's a mental health problem. Well, then take it upon yourself to go fucking try to help them and educate them. Right. So I think that's the conversation too, right? As far as people's health, mental health, and the consequences of that, what that's going to look like in the next decade, let's say. People that made those decisions. And one of my favorite clips, I'm over here fucking ranting at this point, is somebody asking like people that agree with that. They're like, what's the age where somebody can get a tattoo? You think it should be 18? They're like, well, yeah. And then they ask them, well, then why should they not wait till they're 18 for changing their gender or their sex? And then they go all crazy. But I don't know, man. Some of those topics, if not most of them, like I've never experienced thinking that I'm a woman. So technically, in my opinion, I think that I don't really have a leg to stand on, because what if people actually think that? It's like, well, I don't understand that conversation. I don't understand that solution. But I personally feel like I do understand economics and money and investing, and I've made money, lost money, right? So that's what I try to kind of lean more into, is like, okay, well, if I can help people's large fucking burden of stress of money and financial literacy, and that helps them maybe all the way over here that I don't even know about, amazing.
What do you think from, obviously they don't teach it in school, right? Or they don't teach us what we need to learn in school. What do you think is the biggest money mistake Americans make?
The biggest money mistake that Americans make is they don't even know what it is.
Explain that.
People don't even know what money is, meaning they don't know how the fiat system works, right? They don't understand fiat currency, meaning paper money that's literally made up, the banking system that's made up, that these banks, Chase Bank, get the money from the feds, the federal banking system, at a specific interest rate, or in some unique times, negative interest rates or 0% interest rate. And they are earning that money to go survive, but they don't understand like what that actual money is, right? They don't understand that fiat currency loses over 99% of its value. People don't understand that you're taxed nearly a dozen times when you earn it. People don't understand what it actually is. They don't understand that you work so much you don't even make money. What does that mean? What are you talking about, Tyler, right? Like, so you've got to understand what it is. It's like you're working extra overtime to pay more taxes. Congratulations. People don't understand that a dollar saved is a dollar earned. what does that mean? Well, it could be learning how to actually fucking save your money. Learning that when you make $1, I need to save 10% over here for a rainy day fund, for a safety net. If I'm self-employed, for taxes, whatever that percentage may or may not be. So I think the biggest money mistake that people make is they don't even know what money is. They don't even know what money is. They don't even understand that money is actually debt being borrowed from an entity, the feds, that's not even a part of the United States government. So that's, I think, where people need to start and dive into is the 10,000 hour rule, like putting in time of like, what is money? It's a debt credit system, right? Like for me to spend $1, someone had to give it to me and someone had to borrow that dollar somewhere. And somewhere that dollar got taxed time and time again. Every single fiat currency eventually goes to zero since the history of time. What makes America and fiat currency different? What makes America different? Well, I think it's safe to say our military. That's a pretty good start. Oh, yeah. Weapons of mass destruction. You have oil. Here's the government, the U.S. government. But I think that's it. I mean, the obvious outside of that is people spend more than they earn, right? But I think it comes back to, like anything in life, discipline. They didn't teach you how to wipe your ass in school either.
Yeah. Well, hopefully your parents taught you that. But the problem is parents have not, for however long, taught their children about money. I know wealthy parents that, for one reason or another, don't focus on teaching their children about wealth or, how money works. I think that's kind of the crux of what you're saying. People, when you look at stats, like I looked at the other day, 67% of Americans don't have, $900 for an emergency?
Yeah. They say 69% of statistics are made up,
Okay.
which that right there is made up. That's the joke of statistics and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, 67%, 80, whatever, most people are paycheck to paycheck.
Most people are paycheck to paycheck. A very small percentage of Americans are not living paycheck to paycheck. And a very small percentage of Americans actually have structures in place where that if they had an emergency, they could handle it. They don't have to go put it on a credit card or anything like that. They have cash in the bank, Mm-hmm. As we know, over the last 4 years, savings in the bank for Americans has gone from positive to negative. So now people 4 years ago who actually had some cash in the bank, and maybe not a lot, but some, those people, now the average is people are in debt. So they're in the minus. We all know about interest rates. We all know about housing affordability. And all of that has gone to shit over the last 4 years, right? The other thing that happened over the last 4 years is the American credit card debt has, I forget if it was tripled or quintupled, some crazy thing. And that's from the credit bureaus, right? So that's coming from the credit bureaus, where they're saying the average American is now in there's 3 times more credit card debt, or the average American is in 3 times more debt than they were 4 years ago. Those are scary statistics that I didn't hear anyone talk about that during the presidential debates or this last presidential campaign. Like, to me, that's shit that hits home to Americans. Now, I don't want to say Trump doesn't think that's important, because I think he did. He talked about the price of goods, the price of fuel, things like that. But savings rate being at an all-time low for Americans in the history of America, credit card debt being at an all-time high in the history of the country since credit was, consumer credit came out or became available. those are talking points that I think should have been okay, he won. I get it. Fine. But those are the things that I think the average American in middle America, right? We saw the map of the voting, right? Mm-hmm. And what did it look like? It was almost all red except for a couple little spots of blue, right? So there are
Why are all the cool spots blue?
I don't know.
Did you see that joke? It's like anywhere that you actually want a vacation is blue, and it's like,
I don't want a vacation in New York City.
Come on, bro.
I'm not vacationing in LA either.
Slice of pizza, little fentanyl. Come on.
That slice of pizza and that little bit. Actually, the fentanyl might be cheaper than the pizza in New York City right now. Just so you know. I don't know, because I went there. I was just there the other day. A slice of pizza was like $3-4. I was like, what is going on right now? So I think we have not knowing how money works. Like you said, they don't know what money is.
Mm-hmm.
I would add to that, or maybe it's right in line with that. They don't know how money works, right? And we are raised being afraid of debt. And the reality is there's good debt that you can acquire that could lead to your financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
But we're raised to say debt is bad, right? Debt is bad. Although we're as Americans, debt is bad, but we're now in a situation where we're at all-time credit card debt. We're in a situation where we're all-time savings low. So it's about which debt you want to have strategically and how to leverage that, right? Most Americans don't know you don't get taxed on a loan. And I remember I shared that with someone one time. I think I was on a podcast, and the guy I was on the podcast with was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I said, you don't get taxed on debt. And he's like, what do you mean? This is what, they're not teaching people, right? They're not teaching people about how to become your own banker. Mm-hmm. They're not teaching people, the average American doesn't know. And I say this wholeheartedly, the average American does not know how banks make money.
Mm-hmm.
How they truly make money. You go to any city, any major city in this country, the biggest buildings in that city are owned by who? Banks and insurance companies. Look at
a small town. There's a bank on every corner. If there's a stoplight or not, there will be a bank. Probably a couple churches.
Yeah. So hopefully those aren't going away. But so you say to yourself, why aren't people learning that? Why don't people have a basic understanding how our banking system works? It's almost like you could make the case that most Americans don't want to know, because the information's out there. You go on YouTube and you can learn, how do banks make money? How does the banking system work? What is the history of the fiat currency? You could go YouTube that. People just don't care. This is not innocent ignorance. This is directed ignorance. There's no way you can.
It's knowing that the sip of alcohol serves you zero, and you still take the sip of alcohol.
You still do it, right? But I mean, I think money is a weird thing, because for most things, when people don't know about it, they'll go on Google and they'll go on YouTube and they'll learn about it, right? A buddy of mine called me the other day. He's like, I gotta replace a toilet. And he's like, I know you know how to do that stuff.
Pretty shitty situation there, my friend.
It's a shitty situation, yeah, right? And I said, all right, yeah. I said, I know how to do it. I said, but I ain't gonna come over and do it. He's like, no, I know, but I need to replace this, right? I said, okay. So I said, I'm gonna give you the basics, but then I'm gonna send you a YouTube video. And the YouTube video is going to kind of break it down, and so you could watch the video as you do it. But I'm going to also tell you what to do. And he's like, oh, bro, thanks a lot. Right. So then he watched the video, and he called me. He's like, okay, I got it. So I got to do this. He kind of was recapping the video to me. I said, that's right. He said, okay, got it. So he changed the toilet. He sent me a photo of his toilet, the new toilet he put in. I'm like, that's awesome, bro. That's a great photo. Yeah, good job. And he's like, man, that wasn't that bad. It was actually easier than I thought it would be. I said, yeah, it was not that bad. So here's something that he may never have to do ever again in his life. Mm-hmm. Right? He may never have to install another toilet in ever again. And the reality is, for a few $100s, he could have just paid someone to install it. But he took the time to reach out to someone who had knowledge, learn, and then go watch a video and learn some more, and then go check back in with the person with knowledge to, I guess, maybe ingrain a little deeper what he watched in the video and like kind of like get that reassurance. And then he was able to do it. People don't even do that about money. They're broke. Most people are broke, and they don't take the time. Like all these, I don't know if you can see any of the books behind me, but most of these books are about money. They're about money, earning money, making money, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Millionaire Next Door, all this stuff, right? These are all books I read as a young man because I didn't know about money. All right, so I didn't waste my time watching football and watching garbage and all this shit. I read books about money to learn about how money works so I could have money, because I knew that if I had money, I could do stuff. I can go places. I could buy what I needed. So I knew that the number one thing I needed to know about was money. Working with some high-level people years ago in the financial industry, I would work with doctors who were making $1 million a year. And they were broke. And I remember the first time I saw someone's balance sheet. And I said, wait a second. You almost made $1 million last year. He was a high-level physician. And he was broke. Mm-hmm. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? It blew me away. Didn't know how to manage taxes, didn't know how to manage the assets, didn't know how to manage anything in his world when it came to money. Money came in, and it was a lot that came in every 2 weeks. It was a lot. And the money went out.
Right.
Just like that. There was no structure in place. There was no game plan. There was no strategy. There was no knowledge on how to create passive income sources and make money move like banks do. Nothing. And it blew me away. So that's when I realized that people who make a lot of money can still be broke. I always just thought broke people were people who didn't make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. That was just my automatic thing. Like, we grew up poor, right? My mom was a nurse. She made a decent salary, but she wasn't making hundreds of thousands of dollars, by any means.
Which is crazy, by the way.
Which is crazy, right? She was a nurse, as an ICU nurse, saving people's lives while they're on their deathbed in the ICU. And I don't even think she ever, at that time, I don't think she ever broke $100,000 a year, But that was just my automatic assessment. Poor people, they're poor because they just don't make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Broke people are broke because they just don't make a lot of money. It wasn't until I started in that world, in the financial services world, where I realized, holy shit, people who make a lot of fucking money can be broke. Mm-hmm. And in some degree, more broke than people who make a lot less than them. So when you look at the debt-to-income ratio, like there were people, I had met school teachers and firefighters and police officers who were married couples, and they were poor and they were pretty broke. But from a debt-to-income ratio, the doctor making $1 million a year was actually more broke.
Oh, yeah. And
right?
And stuck. Because now what?
He can't ever stop making that money.
I have an anchor. I have this student loan debt. That's the only thing in America that cannot go through a bankruptcy. So that's another topic that I think is extremely interesting when it comes to politics and saying one thing, doing the other. Where's all this student loan? It's the perfect anchor. When I say what is money, or you're saying how it works, it's like anything. It's mental. It's psychological. It's, in my personal opinion, somebody that's a doctor that has zero or minimal financial literacy that makes all this money is actually worse off than somebody that has the same or even more student loan debt, but they have an anchor that can move, right? They don't need to like stay and keep practicing medicine because they're like, well, I can go do XYZ and exchange this time that I have to go figure out this business venture or this job or whatever it may be. But I think that's where it starts, man. And you already know this yourself, right? Like a police officer listening to this or somebody with just a normal job, like the everyday person, number one, it's three categories. How do you make it? How do you keep it? And then how do you grow it? It's like, oh, did you know that you could leverage this retirement account or this insurance policy that you could borrow from tax-free? Because like you said, debt is tax-free money. Did you know that you can move your retirement account from this to maybe a self-directed one so you can borrow from that tax-free to go buy your first investment property? And then, right? So it's like getting people to understand that, in my personal opinion, one way is not better than the other. That's mistakes that I've made in the past, is making comments like, debt is not bad. Dave Ramsey's dumb. To over time, I go, whoa, hold on, Tyler. Calm down. Just because I'm very aware of how to help people get, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of low interest or 0% interest doesn't necessarily mean that's good for people, or it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad that people never use debt, right? That's not the point here. The point is what you said, which is people fear not necessarily what they don't know. People fear what they do know and what they don't understand. One of the weirdest questions I'll ask people, Suresh, when it comes to my coaching consulting on the financial literacy side of consulting, I'll ask people, how many times do you check your bank account a day or a week? And the people,
I check mine every morning and every evening.
Yeah, maybe 18 times a day.
Yeah.
At
least every morning, every evening.
Is it safe to say once a week? Like
I can't imagine only looking at my accounts once a week. That would drive me crazy. No,
but people will do that because they fear what they already know. They already know that there's maybe money in there or been there, done that, right? So it's not coming from a place of judgment or I'm better. None of this of what I'm saying is coming from that place. It's just my experiences in my own journey and coaching, consulting a lot of people. But then people also fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
Right? They fear what they don't understand. They don't understand that. And this is where I hope I'm wrong. It's not saying these things so I can have a nice little cute clip to put out there and told you so. It's like, no, people just don't understand that banks make their money from borrowing that money from the feds, the Federal Reserve, the banking system that operates the world, that connects the world. They borrow it from them at the Fed interest rate of, let's say, 3%. But then they allow us to borrow it, me and you and everyone else listening in, at 7% to get a mortgage, or 20% for a credit card if there's interest. So that's how they're arbitraging the difference. Now, sure, there's transaction fees, wire fees, etc. But at the end of the day, it's also looking at those other indicators that has me aware, has me concerned, has me curious around, we printed off over 40% of our money supply. It's called the M2 money supply when COVID hit, for all these subsidies and, business loans and cutting people a $1,200 check, all the above. I'm not necessarily saying that's bad or it shouldn't have been done. It's just the facts are the facts, which is, okay, if we print off 40% of how much money exists in America, did they actually go turn the printer presses on? No, it's a lot of which is digital, of course. But my point is like that number right there is a matter of time of what the equivalent amount of inflation that we're going to have. It's not the CPI report of baskets of goods, of averages of 100 random products that they can pick and choose, a museum ticket to a protein bar to whatever it may be. It's those simple things about money, of what it is, how it works, why it's important, when and where to pay attention to it. It's the M2 money supply. We print off 40%. That means we just increased inflation. Our buying power just dropped by 40%.
Yeah,
When
and
is
that's
that?
another. Inflation is another big thing people don't understand. Inflation and taxes. Like most Americans, would you say, don't realize that taxes are the biggest wealth eroder in their life? Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, and it's not even a debate, because when you know what money is, how it works, and illusions, and again, not here to say like, oh, abolish the IRS, and that's not the point. The point is, it's considered to be one of the most complex things ever created, and or the illusion of the most complex thing ever created, which is the United States tax law with 80,000 plus pages in it, right? And the point I'm getting at with that is, if you have a job and you make $1, well, the company had to pay taxes on that. Then you had to pay taxes on that. Well, then when you go spend that dollar to go buy a pack of gum, you pay sales tax. And then the company that takes that dollar has to pay tax. And then the employee that checked out to, get the gum into the bag for you to walk out of the grocery store had to pay taxes. And then boom, boom, and property tax of where the building sits on. And so, and then not even to
If this
mention,
had happened back in the day, sorry to cut you off, we would be at war. Right? If you go back just a handful of decades, if you told people just a few decades ago, listen, this is what taxes are going to look like. Just so you know, this is what taxes are going to look like, and this is how much as an American you're going to be paying. They would have said, no, we're going to war. We're not doing that. Wait, what? Are you crazy? No, we're not doing that. Right? What did we go to war for? What were taxes at?
well, the rumor where I live here in Boston, supposedly the rumor is they got really pissed off when they started taxing their tea.
The tea. That's the rumor. Right?
That's
And they're
what
like, we're gonna dump
allegedly.
it in. We're gonna dump it in the river. Right?
I think it tasted like shit. I don't think it had. I think they wanted to pay more taxes. I think it was just shitty tea.
It could have been bad tea.
It was bad
But
tea.
yeah, and you know what? To me, it's very telling, right? It's very telling. Like the tolerance for government overreach today compared to what the tolerance was back in the day, it's unbelievable. People are just like, how did we get to this point where people are like, you want to take how much of my money? Okay, that's sure. You want to tell me to do what? Sure. Okay, no problem. I got to inject myself with what? All right.
That's
How did we get here? How did that happen?
That's what I'm curious about. I think that's what makes our time so unique, man, is like the veil is being lifted. But then the issue is you'll start going down this rabbit hole and you'll go, people still listen to what? They still got that shot, or they still did this or that, right? Like, so is the veil being lifted? And then if the veil is lifted, do people care? Like, so
I
that,
think most people don't. Most people don't.
but I think, I mean, what you said is tolerance, right? It actually kind of shows you how impressive human beings are. It actually blows my fucking mind, bro, that people can go work a job that they hate and have nothing to show for it, and they didn't put a bullet in their head. And they weren't full-blown alcoholics or doing whatever.
Yeah.
Like it actually
Yeah.
shows you, man, if you can endure that, what could you do if you actually like did some shit you enjoyed? But I think that's the interesting conversation is if these agencies start getting audited and this and again, I'm not here to say that these agencies are bad or go away or they're all
Yeah.
corrupt or this or that, right? Like everything
Sure.
may or may not serve a purpose. That is the interesting conversation of what do you mean they're trying to shut down TikTok because they have access to XYZ? I'm pretty fucking sure they're listening right now. They
Probably.
they know everything already. They already have.
Probably. Yeah.
So so I think that's what makes it interesting. It's like anything. You got to have an investment, right? Like this is hours spent going down these rabbit holes and topics and investing time and money and energy and efforts and conversations. And that can be expedited in modern time of a TikTok video that took somebody 60,000 hours to understand this concept to be able to perfect it so well that they can put it into a 60-second clip.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
people are consuming that, and that's the awakening that may or may not be happening.
Do you see that TikTok with that girl? She was like this young girl. I don't know, maybe early 20s, maybe not even if that. And she's sitting in her car, and she said, "So, wait a second. If I earn $1, whatever, $100, I got to pay tax on that. And then I take that money and I go buy something and I got to pay tax on that. And then that person has to pay tax on the money that I just gave them for the thing I bought that had tax. And then when that person goes and spends what's left of that money after paying tax, they get taxed on the thing that they're buying. And the thing that they're buying, the person who sells it to them has to pay tax." Like she just kind of like, she just went through like a quick little scenario, and she's like, "What? I don't. This is like, I don't know. This is great. It's so genuine, but and I think the video got like a zillion views, but this was just a young girl coming to the realization of how pervasive taxes are in our world. And if you realize, if you kind of just follow the dollar, it eventually just burns down to nothing. It literally gets taxed to nothing, right?
And that is what they call a paradigm shift, that aha moment, that epiphany. And I think that's, I mean, man, you said it best. It's like tolerant. I think that's what we have to do. And a reminder to myself is like to not be tolerant, to continue to be curious, to continue to ask questions, whether they're simple, complex, and answer to them or not. When you get the paycheck, you go, wait, what is that? That's what? Medicare? Well, how do I maybe not pay that? Like, wait, benefits? Can I get my own benefits? Can I use this other resource or vehicle that will be, well, not an actual vehicle that you drive, but an investment vehicle? Instead of like, well, we don't talk about money or politics. I think that people just get tolerant and they're scared and fear to have a conversation around things.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? We're all fucking working, and we spend a majority of our time working to earn this thing called money. We don't even know what it is, how it works. So then it goes into the conversation. So we talk about, hey, how do you make it, right? Well, you got to be valuable and have some skills. And then you got to keep it, which is taxes, right? And in fact, we're about to go through what they say is the greatest transfer of wealth in human history, meaning a lot of people are retiring or they're going to die off. So there's going to be assets, businesses, real estate, investments that are passed on, right? Well, there can be an inheritance tax. Again, not financial tax, legal advice, but like there's different things that can be set up like a trust or, other lucrative things that can avoid their beneficiaries, the people that are receiving that, to not pay taxes on it, right? So there's likely always going to be a loophole, and it's just understanding what that loophole may or may not be for you, right? And then it turns into the game of, like Warren Buffett doesn't think that Bitcoin is a good investment or whatever it may be. And it's like, well, sure, maybe not for you because you're in, I don't know, maybe the third step, which is growing it, preserving it. And you don't need to have exposure to something that has volatility of XYZ. And also, your fucking narrative, of course, is going to be against it because your net worth is in Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Apple, real estate. Like, so it's in my journey, man, whether it's me, you, or anybody else, Dave Ramsey, like Warren Buffett, it's just figuring out what works for you. So if it's getting a job, retirement, you don't really care about, like, that's great. That's great. And in my experiences, I used to be substantially more opinion. Oh, you need to consider doing this. And it's like, no, you just need to do your best to continuously be curious and to understand. So then from there, you can make a decision on what is best fit for you. If you want to pay more taxes to live in that area, and you can't measure that. You can't measure that feeling that gives you peace of mind or freedom or the location of where you want to live. So you don't mind maybe paying more taxes. But that's what I'm curious about, bro, going into this administration is the he put a lot out there. He said he said a lot. And dude, if he doesn't release the Epstein list, if he doesn't release the JFK files, if he doesn't get things in place for crypto to be advantageous for America, if he doesn't, clean up the streets and these sacred cities in America, if he doesn't help people have a better life and not do it all for nothing and work day in and day out, have nothing to show for it, that's a whole other conversation. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, because people feel like they got fleeced, right? People feel like, hey, hold on a second. There's a lot of people, and, I'm sure there's pressure there. There's a lot of people who believe that he's going to save America, right? He's going to save America that was failing. I know he's confident he's going to do it, right? So, but like you said, there's a lot that he promised, and there's a lot that he has to do. Will he be able to get it done in 4 years? I don't know. Will he be able to get most of it done in 4 years? I think he'll get a lot of it done. The problem that we have is what's done by one is undone by the next. We keep flip-flopping. Liberal, conservative, liberal, conservative, liberal, conservative. And it keeps going back and forth, right? You just keep bouncing back. You don't get any momentum either way when that happens. And that's just not good for the country, right? We need to get some momentum in one direction or another. Well, the momentum we were going in the last 4 years was not good. So, and most people in the country know that. So we don't want to continue that momentum because that was going to, I think, potentially spiral us into I don't want to say a situation that could not have been saved, but it would have spiraled us into something bad. But when it comes to the bounce back, you need some time for the bounce back. It takes time. 4 years goes by fast. And there needs to be a little continuation, I think, of the efforts, which will be tough. We'll see who goes next, right? I don't know who they're going to put up in 4 years as far as the conservatives. I don't know.
It's going to be
I have a couple of ideas, but man, maybe.
Come on now.
Maybe. The Great Brown Hope. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest concerns. Like you said, he has a lot on his plate. He's made a lot of big promises. Is he going to be able to come through on any of them, all of them? What's possible? You've helped a lot of people with business, money, coaching, hell, even credit, right? Help people restore their credit. You've done the whole gamut of let me say, dare I say, financial services or financial education or financial literacy for a lot of people. What's the biggest difference that makes the difference for people that you see that go from a poor financial situation to a positive financial situation?
I like the word selection. I think that poor and broke are completely different meanings, right? Every word.
Define broke. Well, okay, hold on. I want you to define broke, but I'm going to first share my definition of broke.
Mm-hmm.
My definition of broke, as I learned it, was not enough assets producing income to take care of your monthly liabilities for survival. So, to put that in layman's terms, you don't have enough money in the bank earning interest, and that interest is enough to take care of all of your bills and your lifestyle. So if you have $1 million in the bank and you're getting 5% interest, or you have $2 million in the bank and you're getting 5% interest, you're getting $100,000 a year in passive income off of your interest. Mm-hmm. So if all your bills, all your lifestyle, everything is $100,000 or less, preferably less, and you have $2 million in the bank making 5%, you're not broke. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have $2 million in the bank and you have that money making 5% interest, and your monthly, or I'm saying your annual liabilities, annual liabilities for the year is $120,000. That's what you need to survive. $120,000. You're now short by $20,000. You're broke. So you are not broke until you have enough assets in place where the passive income off of those assets can help you live and you don't need to work. Mm-hmm. If you're not in that situation, you're still broke. That's my definition of broke. What's yours?
My definition of broke is your current financial situation. Being poor is your mentality.
I love that.
Situation versus mentality.
I love that.
Yeah. The Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Like,
yeah.
It's one of the greatest financial literacy books simply because it's a mentality book. Like, honestly, I don't think I could even maybe tell you the nuances of the book, but I can give you the high level of Rich Dad thinks this way. The Rich Dad says, how can we afford a better life and give back more? How can I learn this system of credit, personal and business? How can I? Asking questions. You're giving yourself opportunity. Yeah, just because I'm broke doesn't mean I can't not go be, like you said, financially independent, where your passive income exceeds your current expenses. That's financial independence. That's freedom. But we'll get to this. This is step 2. Financial independence and financial freedom leads to responsibility. And that leads to a whole other set that we can talk on, which is quite a blessing, because to even get to that, most people can't. And so when you do, that's a whole other conversation, because 80% of people that reach that return back to poverty within the second generation. So again, whole other set of problems over there. But coming back to the foundation of it all, it's a mindset, it's a mentality. It's, we can't afford that. Put that back on the shelf. I'm not saying that we should be so abundant that makes you soft and think that you shouldn't be frugal and you shouldn't be disciplined. Dollar saved is a dollar earned. So you got to understand how to fucking save money and have the discipline to not buy the 37 pairs of shoes, because if you can't understand or do that, then you'll get crushed when the money does start coming in, right? You'll be a part of the statistic that returns back to poverty. But broke is just your current circumstance. You got to find a way to do one or two things or both. Decrease your expenses, increase your income, or both. Right? I like to kind of have a mindset of, at the end of the day, you can't really have your expenses be zero. Like, that's pretty much impossible. Not pretty much, it is impossible. You have things to pay for, food, water, shelter. You have money, but your income can be limitless, right? You can make infinite money technically. So I like to view that. It's a very weird visual or analogy, but it's like trimming fingernails. Every once in a while, you gotta, no matter how much money you're making, it's a good discipline to trim the fingernails, right? It's good to stop where you're at, whenever that is, once a month. Like, you got to do it often. It's a good discipline to do. To say, do we really need that? Do we really need to do that? Like, it's discipline.
Yeah.
But poor is a statement. Poor is, we can't afford that. You're not even giving yourself an opportunity. You're not even giving yourself any hope. You're not even asking the question, whoa, what is that on my paycheck? What is that? You're just going, well, just trying to get by.
Yep. Same old Uncle Sam, gotta do their thing.
Yeah, it's like,
no one even asks where their money is going anymore. No one even knows where their money is going.
They don't even know if Uncle Sam is an actual family member.
Right? They have no idea. They're just like, what is going on? Just give this money away. No accountability because, like you said, Pentagon, what was the number? How much trillion? 1 point something, or it's 2 point something trillion?
And then it's like, is that number even real?
Is it? We don't know. That's the number they're telling us. Maybe that's the number they're telling us because the real number would have people like dropping dead.
But then would they? Oh, yeah, I knew it. Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise anyone, right? It wouldn't surprise anyone, just like a lot of the stuff that's coming out now is not really surprising anyone. It's not, people are looking at things, they're like, oh, how is that not headline news? It's not headline news because it's not surprising to anyone. Things that, like, you talked about the Epstein list, right? And us saying that is going to get this podcast, like, throttled. But
yeah, your editor's going to have his fucking hands full.
Oh, he's going to have his hands full. When you talk about the Epstein list, is anyone going to be really surprised by any of the names that come out on that list, if it ever does come out? Is anyone going to be surprised?
No, and I also think that we don't know what we don't know. Now, like, I think we do know what we do know in terms of what likely went down and what's been supposedly verified and all that, right? That's gone down on the island when it comes to sexual abuse and kids and the most disgusting things that you can think of. But again, we just don't know what we don't know. It's like, what if, let's say, Epstein or a three-letter entity or Mossad, whatever we want to come up with, it's like, what if that person, John Smith, actually went there with good intentions to meet this other person, and then it was a master form of manipulation and aha, got you, or maybe a couple people only did those things, but then they're putting them all in a group. And so again, it's just, why do we not know? Of which lets you
at
know.
This point.
It's like,
that was not one person gone to jail. Not one.
But then it's like, well, if they're so innocent and this and that, like, then just share what happened. But then it's like, well, by you not sharing what's happened, then we all kind of know what happened. So then it's like, you're like, what the fuck's going on here?
It's a 75-year thing.
And then if we do know, to answer your question, I would not be shocked. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, no one's going to be... No, I don't think anyone's going to be really surprised. Listen, devil's advocate, like, we've all, at some point, found ourselves in a situation that once we realized what the situation was, we're like, hold on, this is not what I thought it was. I'm getting the fuck out of here, right? Like, we've all been to, I have, like, I've gone to a party, back in the day,
You went
gone to a party.
Diddy parties. You were at those Diddy parties. I could see you.
Oh, man. Yeah, I brought the Johnsons.
You were the baby oil guy, huh?
Oh, God. That's so disgusting. It's so disturbing. But, we've all been to, like, these things in our lifetime, maybe not everyone, where you kind of just, once you are in that situation, you're looking around, you're like, yeah, this is not. I'll never forget the first party I went to. I forget, I was in New York City, someone's birthday or something, So I went with some friends. It was a friend of a friend of a friend's birthday. Hey, come on, whatever. And walked in, and literally, like 10 minutes after getting there, I saw someone in the kitchen doing a certain kind of drug that I'd never seen before, only in movies. And I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. This is not where I need to be right now. And I didn't even say bye to anyone. I like total Irish goodbye, right? Black Irish. I walked out because I was like, okay, this is not like weed or something. Like, no, this is serious. And okay, so can someone come back around and say Suresh was at this party at this person's house, so he's automatically a bad dude and involved with everything that happened that he saw in that kitchen and anything that was going on in that back bedroom? Like he's roped in with all of it, yep. Right? Or Tyler was there. It's like, no. So are there going to be people on that list, if the list ever comes out, that may end up as collateral damage, like that? Yeah, of course there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, okay, so all right, so I was on the list, but listen, I didn't do anything. You're going to have a lot of those, right? I didn't know what was going on there, which I don't know, but we've all been in situations where like holy shit, what's going on here? Like, no, fuck this, I'm out of here. No, I'm not down with this. Like, I'm out. I think it goes a step further when you hear there's kids involved. Yeah. Because then at that point, you almost have a obligation to report it. But I know there were some powerful people there, so you're like, oh, who am I going to report? I'd be reporting it to this guy's boss, or or this guy is the guy I would probably go report it to. So how am I going to report this? Right? So it's kind of crazy. Right? Where if you go to a party and they're doing some drugs, you're like, oh shit, this is not good. Yes, you could leave and call the cops, right? But it was people just doing drugs, and you're like, I'm not down with that. I'm leaving. You go to a party and you hear or find out there's some shit going on with little kids, you better fucking call the police. I'm walking out of that structure. I'm calling the police, and I'm waiting for the police to arrive. And when the police arrive, I'm like, you need to fucking go in there right now. There's some shit going on. I'm going to wait here. Right? That's not oh, someone's smoking weed in there, go get them. Or someone's snorting coke in there, go get them. No, that's fucking crazy. There's little children, or maybe there's some shit happening with kids that don't want to be here. They're against their will. That's real shit. You don't turn a blind eye to that.
Yeah, or you're on an island where you can't make a phone call and they track your phone, or maybe you don't even know that that's going down, and you legitimately went there for a quote unquote
a business event.
Business conference, and you signed a deal and everything was great and this and that, and it was only these 5 people of the 100. All these things said, the craziest part, which coincidentally happened today, from my understanding, and/or yesterday, was the pardon of Hunter Biden. Mm-hmm. The pardon of the list comes out, then what?
Do you think there's a possibility that the list comes out prior to Biden leaving office and he pardons everyone on the list? Or he gives immunity against prosecution to anyone on the list?
Who says that already hasn't happened?
Yeah, because they don't need to make pardons public. Right?
Yeah. Or, okay, you're on that list and you go to this country and you can't be extradited. And now, again, keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer and I don't know all the nuances, but that's the, and then all of that goes, and this is definitely not to because it's obviously a very serious topic with sexual assault and this and that, but, or whatever all the assumptions are. It's just the idea of like, okay, well, what the fuck am I going to do about it?
I know. Like,
And
what
with
power do Suresh and Tyler have to do, even if the list comes out and the names come out, like, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, and I think in this topic situation, it's like, well, I probably think that it's in my best interest, and for the record, never have, never will. Just don't sexually assault somebody. You know what I mean? It's like the person that gets raped and sexually assaulted. It's this weird thing that humans do. It's like they go, majority of the time, they go do it to somebody else, yet it gave them so much pain.
Yeah, it's a bizarre thing. And you hear the people, I learned this in law enforcement and police work. So many offenders were victims themselves.
Why is that?
I don't know. I know, like, to me, you would think that if you were a victim of such a horrific crime, you would become like an advocate against it and to do everything in your power to make sure that it didn't happen to others. But when you look at the statistics, and it was shared with us one time by some shrink, such a high percentage of offenders were victims themselves. And I don't understand. I don't know the psychology behind that. Maybe someone with the knowledge and education can explain that at some point. But it's very bizarre. It's very, like, to me, and I know it's not the same thing, and I'm just giving this as an example. It's not even close. But to me, like, and obviously there's a psychological aspect to it, but I can't imagine me walking down the street and getting held up at gunpoint and robbed, right? Which is a terrifying thing. You got a gun pointed at your head. They take your jewelry. They take your wallet, your phone, everything. And then they take that gun and they point it away and they run away.
Well, if I saw you, I would probably pick somebody else. I don't think.
Right, but it could happen, right? Most people see me walking down the street. They think I'm the guy who's about to do it to them. And I can't imagine, after experiencing that and be a victim to that, in any way, shape, or form, now going and doing that to someone else. Like, oh, I just got robbed. You know what? I'm gonna go fucking rob someone.
Yeah.
So there must be something that happens to the human psyche where, when it's like an assault like that, whether it happened to you as a child or a teenager, whatever, that something happens where you as an adult end up doing it to someone else.
I think it's also, and you said it too, and this is, again, kind of one of those areas talking about kids and sexual assault. That's a very, it's not to say it's all the same, but it's, in my opinion, to a weird extent, the same idea of parents saying, well, I didn't have that. I didn't. It's like, this ain't fucking about you.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, well, I had to walk up a hill both ways to get to school. You can walk. It's like, I understand it builds character and blah, 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 blah. Like, but it's almost the same thing. It's almost like, well, why would you not just drive your kid to school? You want to make his ass run some hills when he gets home or in the morning or with you. There's this like, why are you? Oh, he'll be fine. I had it. It's like me. It's the ego. It's like, me. This actually has fucking nothing to do with you.
No, it doesn't. But that's, there's no handbook for parenting, right? We've all learned that. And I think that's born from literally parents not knowing what to do.
Yeah. And again, I think it's different topics and things. So not trying to like categorize it, and thankfully not. I was too fat as a kid. They're like, yeah, fucking fat ass. We're going to pick the next kid. So that was a blessing, being obese. So that is good. I did have more cushion for the pushing, but they passed on me. That's good. Was not selected. Holy shit, your editor is going to have his work cut out for him.
Oh my God. He's gonna be going through this and be like, what in the world?
But you see it in society, right? It's almost crazy when you go through the whole thought loop of it, of labeling the person with blue hair, I'm a liberal, blah 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 blah. I want to change my gender. It's like the probability of something horrendous happening to them is probably very high.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, if you want to chop your dick off, this or that, cool. But I'm like, oh man, the crazier conversation is the probability of something horrific happen to them from somebody within their family that's supposed to love and protect them is fucking terrifying. So if you
Did you
want to
hear
dye
this?
your hair blue and do whatever, honestly, go. I feel like that's, I think what at least I myself tried to continue to do a better job of. But like the real even issue is not your gender, your hair color, your race, your whatever. That's the illusion. That's the illusion.
Did you hear that stat about there was I saw some commercial, it was about the likelihood of someone from the LGBTQ community to be a victim of some kind of crime. You know, of I don't know what the crime, I don't know if it was, assault or something like, but a crime, But then I saw a follow-up to that someone had posted that I don't know if it's verified or not. I'd love to know. I didn't have the time to research it. Was the percentage of those crimes in which the perpetrators were also part of the LGBTQ community. So I guess in some way, shape, or form, I don't know. I'm giving just a generalization where maybe a man who is gay, homosexual, is assaulted by another gay man in whatever the situation was. A female who is a lesbian is assaulted by her partner or some like. So that's what the premise of it. Once again, I didn't look it up, but I know that in my time as a police officer, I don't quote me on this.
Oh, I'm quoting you.
I don't believe I ever handled a call in which it was like a hate crime where someone straight assaulted or did something adverse to someone gay or, because they were based on they were gay. But I can't recall. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea, but I can't recall. I 100% dealt with multiple calls in which it was people of the same sexual preference, in which there was a domestic situation. 2 men, 2 women. I remember I dealt with 2 women quite a bit. And so I would like to learn more about that, about as far as like the crime that happens within that community, right? I'm sure that there's crimes against them from outside the community, but that was an interesting stat that I, as a law enforcement officer, I lived that. I saw a lot of crime against each other of people within that same community, which,
And then you think through. Go ahead, sorry.
And you see that a lot with all communities, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you see, black on black crime is way higher than any other statistic, right? And you look at, certain other populations, demographic, it's always higher within their own community, and that's the other side of the people who are like, when they're talking about black on black crime, and you're like, well, the biggest threat to black people is black people, especially in some of these cities, which they're being murdered. Young kids are being murdered at like insane rates. And when you say, well, it's black on black crime, people are like, well, everyone's, within their own communities, there's that crime within the community. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, you look at an average weekend in Chicago or Detroit, and you're seeing a lot of black people killed by a lot of black people. I mean, it's scary. I don't know if by percentage wise, if there's any group of people that are killing their own people at that same rate. I don't know. I don't think there is, but that's another stat I'd like to know.
This is from a Kanye West song or a Kanye West quote, if I'm not mistaken. So it's got to be true, obviously.
It must be true, yeah.
Yeah. But it's that comment, quote, statistic, whatever, that, yeah, more people died in South Side Chicago than they did in Iraq, right, in war. And, you and I can both relate to this. Even in the conversation of sexuality, even in the conversation of finances, even in the conversation of all the above topics, school, education, people survive and thrive when the house is in order. So whether that's two males, two females, male and female, I believe in male and female, but the point is I believe that, let's say, black on black crime, the staggering statistic is single parent household. The father not being there for whatever reason, right? So the household not being in order for a kid that was sexually abused by their dad, by their mom, both, or another family member because the house wasn't in order and, wasn't able to protect the house, right? So I think that's kind of more of the interesting conversation, is how the household is being attacked, and leads to, again, discipline, accountability. The first thing we talked about with substances, alcohol, or all the above, is it's not that I'm disagreeing with divorce. It's not that I'm disagreeing with options, disagreeing with these things. It's just abundance, I think, I know makes people very soft. And it makes it, the devil can creep in to abundance, right? Like, oh, there's a lot of hot girls. You can see an abundant amount of them on Instagram. But being like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of good looking women, but I'm loyal to my wife, right? And so, but that leads to, again, a very unique conversation of like, yeah, maybe some people just do genuinely grow apart and their life is way better and there's no ill intent from them separating. And they can move on with their life, and they're both legitimately better, right? But I think that, probably more times than not, it's actually like working through that, and there's a lot of beauty in maybe not so much being so physically attracted over time, but like the things you endured together, the things you conquered together, and so it's almost not encouraged, but it's less, I put in air quotes, less sexy or less cool to like be loyal, be disciplined, and work through shit. It's way easier to just go like, well, let's just move on and date this next person, do this next thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I've thought about a lot, and just a lot of recent adversity that Brenda and I have gone through, and just look, man, I can think with my other head. I'm definitely not lacking testosterone, but it is something I hope everyone can experience, because it's hard to explain, of like seeing a hot girl at the gym and going, holy shit, oh my God. You forget you're married, you forget this, you forget, you're like, oh my God, what? And then boom, 0.5 seconds later, you go, dude, if people could even comprehend what Brenda and I have gone together, like what we've gone through together, like what, like there's no set of tits, I know this is hard to believe, that would ever be better than that. Like, and then you just like, it just shuts off. And some people, they may not even know what I'm saying because maybe they don't have as high testosterone as me, right? Maybe I'm a sick individual. Maybe I have the mental illness. But there's something about that. Like, I think just we have abundance, man. Like, we just have so much abundance with the internet and doing a fucking podcast and communicating and money and blah, 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 and clothes. And it's like, dude, we're actually fucking, hey, everyone, I think we're actually doing pretty good. We're doing all right.
Yeah, the abundance of opportunity or perceived opportunity is what leads to that. Because like you said, now, think about it. There was a time when communicating with someone on the other side of the planet in some other country was... there was a time when, of course, it was impossible. But then there was a time where it was extremely difficult. Like, nearly impossible, but extremely difficult. And then over time, it's gotten easier and easier and easier and easier and easier to the point where I literally was just talking to someone a few hours ago, and they were telling me about someone that they were talking to. He's a dude. He's single. And he was telling me about this girl he was talking to via social media. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. She sounds pretty cool. He's like, yeah, it's been chatting back and forth. I'm like, very cool. So you're going to, get together with her? Set up a date? What's going on? What's next, I'm curious. And he's like, oh, well, I don't know. It's going to be a little hard. She lives in Australia. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
She lives in Australia? I'm like, wait, and so you're talking to someone on Instagram. There's a whatever hour time difference, right? And they live halfway around the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, you couldn't, and she's some really attractive girl that he just was scrolling on his phone and saw, and they ended up connecting. And you're like, wait a second, man, hold on a second. Right? This is insane, but that's the world we live in because that ease is there because I wouldn't say it's just an abundance because there's always been the same amount of chicks, right? Mm-hmm. But now it's just the ease to connect with them. That is what has now grown to a level where, like you said, when there's a rough waters or a rough patch, there was a time when it was like, well, I gotta make this work because this is the situation I'm in, and what am I gonna do? Go out and find where, what, I probably can't. This is it. Let me work on this. To now, oh man, fuck this. I don't need to deal with this. I'm just gonna pick up this thing right here and scroll and start sending some DMs and whatever and and you're like, wait a second. And that is what I think has led to where we are. Mm-hmm. And it's everything, right?
Yep.
It's everything it's, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night and I'm hungry and I have healthy food in my fridge because I went food shopping and I only bought healthy stuff. But it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm a weak ass bitch and I'm going to Uber Eats some garbage to my house. And I just got warm chocolate chip cookies delivered at 1 a.m. from Insomnia Cookies. Right? I'm going to
fucking God, I live now and not in the 1600s, right? It's like, oh my God.
Can you imagine? God. So you just have that and it's leading to so much. I mean, you could use it for good, right? Mm-hmm. You could use it for good, but the ease of being being able to walk to your fridge for food, right? You and I can get up right now and go to our fridge in our kitchen and make a full-blown meal, right? And the ease of doing that, whether it's a healthy meal or a good meal, either way, it's just food. That's an incredible thing, right? Can you imagine living in a time where you're like, oh, I'm hungry. All right, here, sit tight, honey. I'm going to go out and go hunting. And one, I hope I don't get mauled and killed. Mm-hmm. But two, I hope I actually get to find something and hunt it. And I may have to track it after I throw my spear at it and then, walk like 15 miles on this hunt and this track. And then I got to haul the food back to you and the little one. And then we're going to be able to have food for like a few days. And then I got to go repeat the process. Like, can you imagine living during that time? Like, that's like people are so like fat and out of shape now and lazy. And they have that ability to just go to that fridge or do the Uber Eats. And you wonder why we have a society of men where like every other commercial is about low T. Every other commercial is about Ozempic. Every other commercial is about
anxiety.
Your penis doesn't work. Like all this garbage.
Yep.
What is it a result of? It's a result of the lifestyle we've created. I love technology, but you can harness technology for the good, or you could let it ruin you and destroy your life and put you in a position that's very compromised. It's your choice. It's there. It's just about what you're going to do. You could let it, ruin your relationship.
Whether it's being sexually abused, not having a parent, whatever the adversity is. And of course, it's easy to say, right? Because we've talked about this before. One of the things I really enjoyed hearing myself repeat to me is like, nowadays on a podcast or social media or in general in conversation, nobody has a problem and everyone loves talking about the hero story of, look at this scar that I have, look what I overcame. But every single one of us have an open wound and we know it. We know it. Whatever that open wound may be, but your ego doesn't want to be vulnerable. And there are open wounds that, sure, may not benefit anyone to discuss because you're working through it, etc. And it can be borderline victim mentality. I'm going through this and no one wants to hear it. No one cares. But that's it though, right? It's like that shouldn't be your identity. It can help shape it, right? The same fire that
correct.
can light your ass up and the same fire and burning desire inside that can keep you and your loved ones warm. It's that same fire that can burn that fucking house down, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that's what you have obviously gone through. I've gone through. We continue to. And I also know, and I mean, even to put you on the spot, like I know you're going through some heavy personal stuff as well. And especially for men, hence anxiety, health, this and that, like suicide for men is at an all-time high. It's like, man, the pressures, right? The pressures of like, I am working day in and day out and I got nothing to show for it and this, and now you're comparing on social media and like my wife won't even make me a sandwich and she, right? Like it's just the truth, right? Like it kind of bottles up. And especially for men, definitely don't want to talk about the open wounds because you'll be a little bitch. You're soft.
I love that. We talk about our scars readily, but as men, we don't talk about the open wounds.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. What a truth. Yeah, what a truth. And then you look at the actions of some men that we've talked about, and you say, is this an act of someone who is confident, or is this an act of someone who's scared? Like, we see guys that are essentially sexually exploiting their wives on the internet, on social media. And I know we've had conversations offline about that. And there's a line, right? Is that someone who's so proud of their wife that they're going to, exploit them sexually? Or is that someone who has some open wounds and they're acting in that manner because of those wounds, because of that pain, because of that suffering?
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of that in today's day and age with some of the things that these women post, some of these videos that they post. And some people look at that. Sadly, a lot of young girls will look at that and they'll couple to that, right? But you got to take a step back and say, why is this beautiful young girl posting a video in which she's exposing herself, sexually kind of like exploiting herself? Like what? It's not just for likes. The need and the desire for the likes is born from some open wound.
Yes, we've talked about this, and I think it's the manipulation is not bad, depending on the intention of manipulation. There's manipulation happen 24/7, 365, manipulating somebody's thoughts and questioning this and that, like exploiting your significant other or yourself. It's the situation that you gave, right? Significant other. It's the lowest level of understanding human intelligence and emotional intelligence and manipulation. It's like perceived as, well, yeah, she can wear what she wants and freedom and this. You're giving her this sense of power and that you love her and you don't want to control her. But that's actually exactly what you're doing. There's an invisible handcuff. And then this other person is doing a form of like, yeah, I love my body and this is my opinion, right? And I believe my opinion's correct. That's why it's my opinion. But it's also that person I genuinely believe crying for help. It's a similar person outside screaming XYZ topic of whatever. It's not all of them, but like, no, yeah, like it's a cry for help. It just,
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, why would you be upset if Brenda wants to wear something provocative and this and that? Well, she doesn't have to show her fucking nipples to make herself feel like she's beautiful and pretty and sexy and all the above. And then it's also,
If she does, you're doing something wrong.
exactly. Or it's just human nature that we want other humans to be like, you smell good, you look good. So outside of your significant other, trust me, man, I spent a lot of brain space thinking through this particular topic. Every human, me included, you smell good. Whether it's from a straight guy, a gay guy, a woman, ugly, hot, whatever. Oh, thank you. We like the compliments. We like that admiration. But when it comes from a place of like false, very low level manipulation of power, and the intention is the seeking for help or validation, it's like you wear that shit at home.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's because that's not being fulfilled or not what you want or desire. This is the cry for help.
Yep.
So it's, and then it's
I
like,
don't think you're wrong.
yeah, then it's just like, it's very low level manipulation to be perceived as, oh, I give my wife freedom she can post what she wants and this and that, because if I didn't do that, that's controlling this. And it's like, no, we have boundaries. Because
I think most men,
and if you want to go outside of those boundaries, then you're seeking this and your intention, well, we got a deeper issue here.
yeah. And I think most men look at that and they don't look at that as, oh, that's cool. I think most real men look at that and say, why is that guy doing that? Why is he allowing his wife or girlfriend, whoever, to look like that? And why is he celebrating that? Right? I think most guys who are real men, not that anyone needs to be controlling or throttling or whatever, but there's a line, right? There's a line. And I even know women who see situations like that, and women feel like it's like weird. I've talked to women. I've talked to women who've said, yeah, I have a friend and she dresses a certain way and she's always looking a certain way and she's married. And her husband doesn't care. Lets her do whatever she wants, wear whatever she wants, dress like whatever she wants. And yeah, her husband doesn't care. And I would say, what do you think about that? And I'll never forget the first time I heard this has been echoed multiple times ever since by multiple women. They all say the same thing. They all say, I can't believe he allows that. Mm-hmm. I can't believe he's okay with that. If I were him, I would not be okay with her, my friend, looking like that, going out like that, with or without him. So to hear females say that,
yeah,
and say like something's up here, there's something wrong with him if he's allowing her to look like that and go out, and has no problem with it, right? So there's a deeper issue there, and that just goes to the deeper issue in our society, right? The breakdown of the family, no fathers in the home. The attack on masculinity and every other aspect that we're seeing in our society. Like I saw and I don't know if you've seen it. Now, exercise and fitness is a right-wing conservative extremist ideology and practice.
Yep.
So eating healthy and being fit and going to the gym and working out is now right-wing conservative lunacy and extremism. And, and it wasn't just one article by one crazy person. I saw multiple articles on it. And the last one I read was why the right is obsessed with fitness. Like, shouldn't we all be obsessed with fitness? Shouldn't we all be obsessed with being healthy? Or like, is it cool to like be unhealthy and want to die real soon? Like what?
Yeah.
What's the story there?
And anything could be. Yeah, I mean, that's the fact of the matter is communication, right? Like just having the difficult conversations, right? Like
yeah.
And then also having just like healthy communication and conversation is tricky, because if you think this, then it's natural to like naturally label, well, you believe in gun rights, so that makes me believe that you now believe in XYZ and blah, 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 blah. And then not being open to the idea that like, yeah, maybe that person will change their mind, or like they'll have some different experiences and be like, I was actually wrong, because God forbid if we're wrong. Because I know I'm never wrong. I know it's pretty crazy, but Brenda would agree as well. It's pretty nuts. But then it's also like, yeah, sure, I would be labeling over here, why are they so obsessed? Like if they're shaming all these people over here, like, oh, they're all jacked and on testosterone and steroids and this and that, you fat liberal fucking blah, blah, blah. Well, like that doesn't probably do much of anything either, like
I don't see that happening, right?
Yeah.
I don't see that. Like I've seen, what I have seen is people on one side saying, hey, being overweight and being unhealthy should not be celebrated, right? You looked at, I think Victoria's Secret did something where like all the models were overweight, right? And I'm not trying to be bad about it, but overweight from a body body mass index, right? And from a clinical standpoint, a physician would say you have an unhealthy body weight and you should, for the sake of your health, lose weight, right?
You're
if that
fucking
person
fat, get off the Victoria's Secret stage. I think that's what they said.
Maybe that's something that like some people wanted to say, but like, and then like there was this like beauty pageant where like the person who won was, heavy and overweight, and I'm once again not trying to be bad about it, but like right. So I think people were like, okay, are we celebrating that? Are we saying it's a good thing? Because no respectable doctor or dietitian or nutritionist would look at that person and say, you're healthy. This is fine. Don't change anything. Like, you're good. But then on the same exact person, they were saying, this is beautiful. We should celebrate this. And I think all people are beautiful, right? All people are beautiful. But we weren't talking about beauty here. We're talking about health, right? We're talking about health and wellness. Yeah. We don't want to celebrate a state of being that's unhealthy, right? We don't want to celebrate a state of being that could shorten your life, right? Because then you might push certain people who were maybe on track to eat healthy, especially these young girls that are, you know what? I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to exercise, whatever. And then maybe they see something like that and they're like, well, you know what? It's okay to be overweight. It's okay not to eat healthy. It's okay to be obese. It's fine.
Well, I also think I actually love this topic because one of my buddies, he was I believe like the VP, the vice president of Victoria's Secret, which coincidentally is or was owned by L Brands, which was owned by Les Wexner, which was best friends supposedly with Jeffrey Epstein. Just a side note there.
The Ohio Wexner?
Yeah, Les Wexner. Yep, best friends with Epstein, directly connected to him. The rabbit holes, if you go down, were Victoria's Secret models being sex trafficked as well, and it goes down a whole fucking,
wow.
Yeah. It also kind of shows you, which is clearly maybe not the best example here, based on the gibberish I just gave, but do you see the consequences of that brand going against their identity? Who cares about Victoria's Secret anymore? And if anything, it's like, if you're all about body positivity, because people are built different in genetics and whatever, why the fuck don't you just be the competitor against Victoria's Secret and take a piece of the market share and have that be your agenda, your business model? But we're so fixated on this. Shame, guilt, narcissistic tendencies. And it's like, yo, this is an opportunity. Why don't you go create the competitor to Victoria's Secret and capture that audience? But as a result of them going against their identity of the Victoria's Secret model body that we can all maybe put in our head of, slim, and they diet and they do whatever, their brand from a revenue standpoint and making money, and from a business standpoint over time took a negative consequence of that. They lost market share. The Kim K's of the world came in and created Skims, and other competitors came in. So I think that's, in a weird way, an example of sticking to who you are and what you're about. Like, it's not, we're putting Victoria's Secret models up here that are super fit. We're not advocating for them to starve themselves, right? We're not saying that you're a piece of shit if you're a little overweight. Nothing to do with that. We just want, we're about this.
Yeah.
Like, just because I'm Christian, I don't think that somebody that's atheist is a piece of shit and should burn in hell for, well, I guess technically the Bible may, you see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't mean this. Like, it doesn't mean, because I think that using credit and debt is one of the best tools to grow your net worth and reach financial independence and have a better life. It doesn't mean that the person that never wants to touch it is completely fucking wrong. It's like putting all your energy to what you're about. In any topic we talked about today, it's like kind of picking and choosing, because that's the other thing I've caught myself with as well. It's like kind of getting so fixated on gender and sexuality and this and that. And I'm like, well, I'm straight and I don't have kids. So, and that I'm aware of, like, no one around me is kind of struggling with that. So, and also too, I've never had that. So I don't think I'm a good resource to go to about that topic. but I might be a good resource to talk about crypto and credit and real estate and business. You know what I mean? So I think it's just versus our grandparents were fucking fighting in Vietnam and doing this and doing that. It's just different and just trying to like, to me, that's actually fucking pretty irrelevant. So I'm just going to worry about this.
That goes to what you said about having your own house in order, which I think is a good place to close on, is we see a lot of people these days focusing on things and championing things for things. And then you look at the people who are doing it, and you could clearly tell that their own house isn't in order. You know, they're unhealthy. They're broke. They're no networks, bad relationships, all kinds of breakdowns going in their lives. No membership, no knowledge, no nothing. And yet here they are at some grassy field on a college campus holding a sign, wearing a mask about some thing that's happening in some place that they can't even point out to on a map. Right? That might be the most disgraceful thing I've seen. And, obviously there's some people who are exposing that on social media. They're going to some of these rallies, right? And they're like, so what are you here for? And people are like, the thing. Oh, so what, where is that like in relation to this place? They're like, I really don't know. And I can't talk to you anymore. I'm sorry. Like, right. Like, why are you here? For this reason. Okay, so what specifically is that something that really like hits home about this? I really can't talk about this right now. I got to go to class, right? Like, so you have this abundance of people who are broken in some way because they don't have their own house in order, and they're out there trying to fly the flag and be a champion for some cause. Because they feel like because they have no grounding themselves and they have no passion and no purpose themselves, that if they try to be a champion for this cause, it'll make them look like a good person and it'll give them some sort of purpose and make themselves feel better. Although they have no idea what they're there for. So in an effort to make themselves feel better about themselves, I am going to go hold a sign and look like I care about this cause. And people will see me and say, oh, they're going to identify me as someone who cares about this cause and I have a purpose and I have a passion and a vision and a direction. And then you look at some of these people and you're like, your life is a mess. Look at you. You're out of shape. You're overweight. You're broke. You look like like hell. And here you are. You're out here. You're out here for the cause. What? Like, have you thought about yourself lately? Like, or is this it? The cause, right? Black Lives Matter, whatever. Okay, you're white. You've never experienced racism. You don't even know any black people. You don't know what racism is. You've never experienced it yourself. But here you are out here. Why? Because you have no purpose. You have nothing going for you. And this is your way of kind of looking like you care about something and you're doing something about something. And to me, that's like the saddest, most pathetic thing in the world.
Do you think being a white male in America has become more difficult over time?
I don't want to say it's become more difficult. You do have to deal with some people who are crazy and who somehow think that if you're a white male in America, like you're just walking down the street and people like throwing cash at you and throwing food at you and like everything's like great. I know plenty of white dudes that are straight white dudes in America that are broke and struggling, lost their businesses during COVID and trying to bounce back. They've gotten fired from their jobs. They like you name it, it's happened to them, and they're just straight white dudes. So this narrative that's being built that heterosexual white males are, one, the cause of all these issues, but then two, somehow have like this free ride in life to get anything they want, do anything they want, go anywhere they want, and all this. Like I don't know at what point that became a thing. It was like recently, right? Just recently, these last few years where that's happened. So I don't know how that's affected a lot of people. I mean, I've talked to some of my friends who are straight white guys, and they're just like, yeah, well, whatever. I just keep going about my business. I gotta, still gotta work. I can't, I don't got any, like, someone handing me cash every day, so I'm just gonna go to work. And yeah, I hear that in the news, whatever. And they consider the source when they hear things. Like, if some crazy young kid with crazy hair with 10,000 piercings and stuff on some college campus who is white themselves is talking about the, how straight white men are the devil, they always consider the source, and they're like your dad. So like guys like who your dad probably is, like, like that. Like the professor that you love going to his class because he's talking about all this great stuff and, Marxism and all this stuff, but he's an old straight white guy, right? Old rich white guys they're the devil too, right? Like, I don't know, Joe Biden. So it doesn't make sense. So they always consider the source. So I mean, I don't think it has had an adverse effect. I mean, I think most guys who fall into that category just are like, yeah, okay, it's just like some more shit. Some guys have taken it personally, which I can understand. I can understand when there's a movement to say, hey, people who look like this are the reason for problems in our country. And like some of these dudes are like, what? Like, I haven't done anything to anyone. I'm just like trying to survive like everyone else here. Like, what are you talking about? I'm a straight white guy, and I'm the root of all the evil of our country. So I think that's the mentality for most. So I don't know if it's gotten harder. I think it's just gotten more annoying probably, but they're just kind of going about their business. I haven't heard of anyone say, oh, I didn't get served in this restaurant because I'm a straight white guy, or, it's not, it's not like that, but, I think it's more annoying. Listen, I get it. I get it. As someone who looks like me, it doesn't matter how much money I have. I have maybe put myself in a situation, and I just did a video on the channel for this about how I've kind of beat racism, and it got a lot of comments from a lot of angry people who they're holding on to the victim mentality so tight they're losing like blood flow in their fingers. And I was like, how I beat it? I got rich. I became successful. And I moved out of the situation I was to a new situation. And now I'm in a situation that I've now created for myself because I became successful where, yeah, I don't deal with racism. Like, I don't go into restaurants and people don't serve me. I don't go into stores and people don't help me. Like that doesn't happen. And it's probably based on where I live, and it's probably based on the amount of money I have and maybe the car I'm driving, the clothes I'm wearing, whatever it might be. But that's a combination of the level of success I've attained. So that has kind of helped push out like those potential situations of racism. I've virtually eliminated them from my life. Could it happen tomorrow? Of course. Yeah, I could go to Chick-fil-A tomorrow and some girl can be like, I'm not serving this guy. I don't know. It could happen, but I can't remember the last time it happened. I literally can't remember the last time it happened, and I think that's it's a part of what I've created. Now, a lot of people in the comments on that video made comments of, oh, but people are going to still look at you a certain way. Oh, people are going to still maybe when you turn your back say something. Yeah, you can go to the fancy restaurant and they're going to serve you and you're going to have your meal, but they're going to be whispering at the other tables about you, or when you walk out, the people. I'm like, well, that's not racism. That's stupidity and ignorance.
That's called
Racism would be if they like, didn't serve me
it.
at that fancy restaurant. That would be racism. But that's not happening. So you're never going to be able to avoid people talking about you. Like, what do we want? Like utopia where, you get to go eat in the restaurant and get treated the same way. And also when you leave, you're also, although you wouldn't even know it, but when you leave, no one's going to talk about you. No one's going to have an opinion about you. Let me tell you something. I've been at dinner where there's a group of white girls, white women having dinner, and one of them has to leave early. And it's all white women. All these middle-aged white women at these fancy restaurants having their lunches or their dinner. And one of them leaves early. The second that one walks out, guess who they're talking about?
Yep.
They're all talking about her. Is that racism? Right? No, it's not racism. It's just people being people, having opinions. And you know what? That's never going to end. So people who... people were like, that's nice that you can go in shops and people take care of you and go out to eat and people serve you. That's nice that you have that life and you don't experience like not being served and anything like that, right? You can walk in anywhere and being taken care of. But people are going to still think this. People are going to still say. And I wanted to be like, are you retarded? Like, are you trying to say that because people are going to have thoughts about you, that's still racism? Like, it just blew my mind. And that is that victim mentality. They just love that victim mentality. They just want a world where no one has a negative thought about them. Guess what? If you're short, people are going to have thoughts about you. If you're fat, people are going to have thoughts about you, right? If you're ugly, people are going to have thoughts about you.
And of course, easy for me to say a white male in America that's straight and, well, of course, and you're also saying this because it's manipulation, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we're so, like, it's the woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's the brain making up these fake assumptions or conclusions to go, well, they could, like, okay, well, you're a fucking pussy. If you're black and you think that someone's being racist to you because they look at you and Beverly that literally have seen one black person in their neighborhood, fucking you're a pussy. And then also if you're a white male and you're like, why are they giving money to African Americans and more scholarships because they're Indian or fucking black or whatever, you're a pussy. Sounds like you should get better and get the scholarship or go get a job and pay for the scholarship yourself if you're mad that a brown person got the scholarship because they're brown.
Correct.
Yeah, they're just brown, and I guess that's what they're. If you the woulda, coulda, shoulda, you're a fucking pussy. And again, that's easy for me to say because slavery and all. I'm like, I don't got slaves. Fuck shit. I'm Poppy's slave and Brenda's slave. So I'm like, fuck shit. So I don't want to be rude, brother, but I am extremely late to this other meeting, and
yes,
we gotta do
I
this
know.
again.
This is awesome. I feel like we can go for like another 3 hours, but hey, listen, thank you so much. Where can people find you to connect with you before we end, man?
Tyler Bossetti on tylerbossetti.com, Instagram. On most social media platforms, but Instagram is where I'm most active, so people can follow me, send me a DM, any way that I can help them personally, professionally, financially. Happy to do so. I appreciate the opportunity, brother, and I'm excited I know you got a lot of stuff you're working on right now between 221B. We'll obviously stay connected, of course, but any way I can help you, bro, your audience, I'm here. So
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I know we went way over, but it was well worth it, so I really appreciate it, man.